Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 62 of the Nerds and Words podcast. This week, Tim is gone. He is currently recovering from a 72-hour juice cleanse to prepare his body for New World. So he'll be back next week after the game launches, and we'll be able to catch up with him. This week, we're going to be joined, as usual, by Potion Shop TV.
It is I.
Kerr.
Yo, yo, yo.
And special guest Nico Tulo.
Hello from Germany this time.
So we'll just start it off as usual, talk a little bit about how our weeks went. Potion, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I've been back to streaming a little bit. Just been doing New World streams and slowly losing my mind with nothing to play. It's about a regular coming in and then just repeat the same thing I talked about for the last day and then do that for as many hours as possible, and then that's the stream. But I've been enjoying it too.
I heard a lot of people have just been streaming VODs because they're like so hyped for New World. They can't play anything else. So they're just streaming the same thing that they've did for the last few weeks and just watching it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually made I have like a whole series of YouTube videos that are just like that, right? There's like 38 videos. They're just gameplay videos. You know, they have some purpose to them, like a particular rotation in a region or something, but they're just gameplay, right? So I've been watching a lot of those and keeping up with it. This has been surprisingly like, you know, every day there's like one good video that I find on YouTube that I learned something I had no idea about before. So still been kind of gaining a little bit of nuanced knowledge here and there.
Yeah, it's the development for this stuff is so like back and forth. I hope that some of the things actually stay the same by the time the game launches, but I've been kind of doing the same thing, just jumping around, trying to see what I can learn at the last minute.
Yeah.
Kerr, how'd your week go?
Yo, my week was kind of busy. I had midterms this week, but I finished up my last one literally like 40 minutes ago.
Whoa.
So that's
Clutch.
nice. I was messing around on the global labs because they came out with Archer and Sork rework. So I was up at like 1 a.m. when it hit live in my time zone to like goof off on the Archer rework. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, that's about it. I've been goofing off doing some seasonal PvP because seasonal PvP has been really fun. Like with the cap on the Tuvala and stuff, there's different classes that are viable. So I've been having fun like spamming Archer and RBF. But that's about it for me.
I keep seeing Archer in your stream titles. Is there something special about Archer at the capped gear score? Is it like the old 269 days or something?
Well, kind of. Well, I don't know. Well, in the current game, right? So like when you're playing with regular gear, the way AP scales so hard over DP, like you just get one shot in super armors, right? Before you like can even kite around and do different things. But in the like Tuvala caps, you have different classes that are viable, right? Like you have like Kunos and you have Mooses and you have Archers and all these other classes that like do really well in PvP down there. Obviously you still have the crazy meta slaves like the Awakened Sages and the Novas and stuff like that, but there's a lot more classes that are viable, so the PvP has been really fun.
Nice. Yeah, some of my favorite PvP was season 1 when I was playing Suck Valk for the first time, and then again season 2 with Ashishin when that came out, just goofing around at Nagas with like, 400 gear score.
It's interesting that the gear score is different, right? Like makes different classes matter. It's really I think BD is like the only game I can think of that really the meta changes so much by just having a gear score cap.
Yeah, it's the same way with like I mean, it's a lot of it has to do with time to kill, right? Like it's the same way with the weird caps on T1s, how the meta kind of violently shifted after they added the decaying health over time. And so it became very like iframey and one-shotty, and everyone just rerolled to rat classes instead of the typical meta classes. So it's just goes to show if they actually ever like fix time to kill in that game, I think it could be really good for overall balance.
Do you think they will do that as well for the PvP seasons once they come?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
I think that'd be interesting for the arena at the very least, because the arena, they said that they were considering doing a gear cap like that, right? So I think that would really influence a arena if they had one, and it might see a resurgence, and that would make the scene a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. What about you, Nico? What have you been up to for the last week, or just in general, since you're the guest? What are you playing these days?
I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat, just playing VODs, but I'm also playing a lot of Lost Ark still on Russia. I'm still really into that. I think it's actually still super fun. I just wish the games would release, just like everyone else.
Yeah,
Because progressing a character on like a server that you won't commit to is always, a little bit questionable. So, but outside of that, sorry.
How much time have you put into that?
Ooh, I don't know actually.
So it's been quite a bit.
I started when Russian Lost Ark was released, and I played for like 2-3 months, and then I stopped basically, and then I started again like 3 months ago, and I've just been PvPing basically, because in that game, at least the match-made PvP is completely gear equalized, so you can jump into it nowadays actually at level 26 already, and you can basically just play as much as you want and rank up, and it's basically like Battle Ride or something, like an arena PvP game for me at the moment, because I don't want to progress too much in PvE and then abandon the character again.
Yeah, so I have so many questions about Lost Ark because I haven't played it yet. So you played the Russian version when it launched, and then you took a break, came back to it. Is it caught up to the Korean version now in terms of content, or is it still kind of behind?
It is not yet. They're slowly getting there. They have staggered releases as well. We are, I think, a couple months out of Korea at the moment. So like the high end, I think 2 more Legion Commander raid tiers, so which is the highest raid tier basically. Whereas we still don't have, and a couple of patches, we're behind on the PvP side as well.
Because one of the things I was wondering is if it would be worth it to play the Russian server just to kind of see the content that's coming out. Like, do you feel like that's a game where you have a big advantage by looking ahead at the Korean version or the Russian version and seeing what NA is going to get ahead of time? Or is it the kind of game where you can just go into it fresh and like learn as you go? Like, how you see what I'm getting at? Like, is it the kind of game where you would want to play another region for a couple months just to see what content is coming out so you could prepare for it?
I mean, it's always an advantage, I think, right? Just so you know what you're doing, you're fast on max level and so on. Since the game, especially on the PvE side, is fairly time gated, at least on the gear progression side. So if you know like what kind of things you can do early on, and like to get a little bit ahead of the curve is probably good. But generally speaking, it's still, for the most part, a theme park MMO. So you can definitely also go in blind and have fun with it and learn on the way. But there's actually a lot of complicated systems. So, I mean, if you want to try it out early, Russia is basically for free anyways. You will just have to have to download a VPN and play with 200 ping or whatever. So outside of that, I think.
And how long does it take before you can start doing arenas and stuff once you start fresh?
So they recently changed that to level 26 for arenas. So the soft cap max level is 50. You can keep going after that until level 60, a little bit like BDO, but level 60 is actually hard cap. And once you reach level 26, you can start doing arenas. They just added that the last patch, which is really nice. So it only takes a couple of hours. The actual endgame PvE stuff, you will have to get to level 50-ish. Fast players that know what they're doing, it will take them, I don't know, 11 hours, 12 hours to get to that level. Newer players probably maybe double that, maybe 20.
Interesting. Okay.
That's
and
not
so
too bad.
the PvP in that game is like somewhat capped, right? It's not directly tied to your PvE progression, or how does that work?
So there's a couple different ways you can PvP, but the most relevant one is match-made PvP, and that is just through an arena queue browser, just like in League of Legends or something, where you queue up, and there's normal mode, 1v1s, 3v3s, free for all, and so on. And 1v1 is actually not 1v1, it's more like King of the Hill. And then you also have ranked, but ranked is only 3 versus 3. And you can't queue up with a team actually, it's only solo queue as well. And yeah, there's also other PvP on the side of like islands. So islands is basically like nodes are in BDO, but kind of instanced where you take your boat and you ship there and then you land there on the island, and the island is kind of instanced in that way. Although it's, that's basically the form of open world PvP to an extent. On some of those islands, PvP is always enabled, and then gear matters. And on top of that, there's also basically node wars over these islands, and in those there's also a limited amount of gear scaling. I'm not really 100% sure because my gear sucks, so I can't play them. But there's different times.
There's so much different content there then.
So just to interject, because I see there's a lot of people asking who Nico is. Do you want to give your introduction of who you are? I know us OG BDO players remember you and know who you are, but for the new people.
Sure. Yeah, I started streaming basically with BDO back in the day when it came out. I don't know, what is it now, 6 years ago almost?
It was a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time.
I remember watching you, and then you kept thinking I don't want to grind for 62 because it's this big grind, and then you did it, and you're like, why is everybody making a big deal about 62? That was easy.
Yeah, I don't know. I was never the biggest grinder, but I enjoyed it, honestly.
I remember Nico YOLOing a tech crescent back when everyone was still on duo crescents and getting it. That's it's probably my my clearest memory of you.
Before that, there was my favorite part was when you were like, "Yo, screw it. If I get this pin, if I hit this pin, I'm re-rolling Tamer." And he proceeds to hit the pin and actually puts his gear on Tamer. And I was like, "Damn, respect."
Yeah. I actually started with Tamer at the on launch because there was no. I actually wanted to play Ninja, and there was no Ninja on launch. So I ended up playing Tamer, and I actually really liked it. But when Striker released, I was instantly hooked and almost never changed. I played a little bit of Archer, a little bit of Tamer afterwards, but I always ended up on Striker again.
Did you ever... so how long has it been since you played BDO regularly?
So the last... I've quit the game so many times I can't even count anymore. The last time I quit was, I think, around half a year ago. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so you still kind of coming and going.
I mean, I always get the BDO itch, but I feel like nowadays I'm not... after the last quit, I'm not so much inclined to play again until I can see the things that I want to be change, But I don't think that will ever happen, so I don't know. I'll probably just end up being mad again at some point and playing BDO.
Yep, that's usually how it goes. Okay. Anything else people should know about you? Any accolades? Anything you like to brag about?
I'm basically if I don't play MMOs that don't have PvP, I guess. I only whenever I play an MMO that doesn't have endgame, and to some extent with PvP in it, I'm not really interested. So I like to pride myself with being okay at PvP, I guess. But outside of that, I'm just playing.
How have you been performing in Lost Ark on the Russian servers with shitty ping? Have you been able to hold your own over there?
Luckily, I'm from Germany, so I'm not super far away from Russia. I get between 40 and 80 ping, which is still noticeable because the servers are kind of weird. So you also have a little bit of desync issues. We're familiar with that.
You get 40 ping to Russia? That's wild.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure how accurate that is, but I also use exit lag because you need a VPN, right? So it tells me 47 ping. I don't know how accurate that is, but yeah, it spikes sometimes up to 80, and I've been doing okay actually. I've my biggest or my highest rank was, I think, 74 on the server, which, I mean, the server is pretty small, so it's not the biggest deal ever, but it's fun. It's fun for sure.
It makes me think that it might be more like BDO lag, where it doesn't matter if your ping is low or not, you still have lag in it.
Like ping matters a lot. It's a Korean game, just like BDO as well. So ping also does matter to an extent. But especially on the Russian server, there's a lot of rubber banding going on. The more ping you have, so it does help having lower ping. But as I said, like my ping is acceptable anyways.
So is Mystic still busted? I played it a little bit when it was first coming out in Korea, and the Gauntlet class Mystic was insane back then. Is she still like the top dog in terms of like 1v1s?
I'm not sure which class you mean actually.
She was the one of the Gauntlet classes, and she had the dragon ability.
Infighter.
It's been a long time. Yeah, Infighter. Yeah.
Which will actually be called Scrapper in the West for some reason.
That's a good name.
Okay.
She's always like in season 1 she was decent. They changed a couple of things around. Now she is not doing so well, but I think one of the higher skill cap classes though. So if you're good on it, you're good.
Okay.
Do you feel like the game handles ping decently? Like, is there rubber banding and stuff? Like, what's the downside of having a higher ping? How does that play out from your like in terms of your experience of the game?
You do notice it with rubber banding, unfortunately. The higher ping you have, the more you notice it, and sometimes it can be so frustrating that you're in a there's no iframes really, so you have basically different tiers of super armors, and if you use a super armor dash ability, for example, where you can't get hit, sometimes you just get teleported back, and that's super frustrating, obviously. So it doesn't handle ping super well, I would say. But I have also heard a lot of different people say the Korean server handles the ping way better. So like if someone has 200 ping on Korea, it's less noticeable than if you have 200 ping on Russia. If that makes sense.
Interesting.
So maybe the publisher itself has bad servers then?
Yeah, maybe the Russian developer has bad servers. Okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to try the game yet, so I can't decide if I should look forward to it or not. I've heard like really good things, but I feel like I'm still not necessarily grasping the overall like progression of the game, because it's interesting that you've got the PvP crowd who seems to want it because it's got like gear equalized arenas, but then you've also got, you know, you were saying it's mostly a theme park game. Like most people who are playing that game are probably not going to be doing it for the PvP, right? They're just going to be grinding mobs and getting gear and doing the raids. And would you say that's kind of the primary content that the game is offering?
So you could actually browse the Lost Ark Twitch category right now, and you would see that like on the Korean side of things, because that's where most streamers are right now, 99% of people over there play PvE. Like PvP is obviously fun, and like people will dabble into it, and they used to have a scene for it, which they will probably bring back later this year actually. But PvE is the big focus for most people in this game, I would say. So you do raids, you do dungeons, and so on.
So is the PvE competitive then? Like, are people grinding some kind of leaderboard or trying to get world first? What's the rush in terms of like, you know, practicing on other regions and knowing what you're doing and getting ahead of the curve, you know, so to speak? What's the benefit of doing that? Is it just you get to clear the content faster, or is there actually like some competitive ranking that you're trying to vie for?
So I can obviously only speak as someone that's just looking onto this, because I'm not participating myself, and I'm also not Korean. So the Koreans have all of the big raids before everyone else, obviously, again. Seems familiar, right? And generally speaking, the actual, they're called Legion Commander raids, which are the hardest difficulty content you can do, basically. They also have different difficulties, like WoW, in a way. So like you have, I don't know, normal mode, hard mode, and so on. And those are actually pretty hard, and most people that I've watched doing them, it looked at least on the level of WoW, I would say, like retail WoW. So that there's also world first races for that, obviously. So generally speaking, I think most people over there do it because it's challenging, and on top of that, they also have like their own little world first races in the Korean region, I guess. On top of that, there's also something called Hell Mode raids that also release depending on like I'm not actually sure when they release, but they're also always later than the actual raid release. And on those raids, you don't actually have gear relevance, so you can actually go into that with the minimum gear score that you need to enter the raid, and you will have the hardest difficulty raid possible without any shortcuts, I guess.
Okay, interesting. But you've mainly just done the PvP, right? You haven't gone that deep into the PvE.
Yeah, so far I'm just PvPing. I've watched Saint One actually is also a streamer. He streams on Korea and he's cleared basically all of the latest content, and it's I always watch those just because it's very interesting, and the mechanics of those boss fights are actually very in depth. So if you watch one of those for the first time, it's like you don't really know what's going on, and I think that's a good thing. So there's definitely a pretty big learning curve in that regard. So I think a lot of people are just hooked on, keeping on dying to the same boss over and over.
That's the best part of any theme park game is the progression, right? I feel like once you actually beat the content, you almost like the game kind of loses a bit of its appeal, ironically. So yeah, the longer it takes you to get through it. That's why I'm kind of curious, like, because for me, the big question is, am I actually going to go take the time to play Russia before NA? And it's like, if the only point of doing that is so that I can clear the raids, a month sooner than it otherwise would have taken me, it's kind of like, well, what's the point? I might as well just experience the progression, in a raw form, rather than like going and learning it in another region just so I can do it faster in NA.
I mean, I'm sure there will be some sort of racing for us as well, right? Like there will be people competing. We're the first in Europe to clear whatever boss and so on. But generally, yeah, I don't think while they're hard and challenging, I think the competition isn't as, or probably won't be as well focused on in our version, since obviously Korea, Russia, and Japan will get the raids before us. So we'll be a little bit known already.
Yeah, that's kind of sad too, right? Like playing a theme park game where everything is already figured out before you even get the content. That's a big buzzkill.
Yeah, that's a similar problem that they're having with the BDO dungeons too, right? Where it's like, well, like you're given titles for the first completion, so how do you do that when Korea gets it 1 to 2 months early? So like they didn't even give the titles for our version just because someone just watched the videos of a Korean showing the
Right.
mechanics and puzzles. So
Yeah.
hopefully they figure that out. But yeah, I don't know.
I think the one thing that I like about it is that the equalized PvP actually feels well balanced and feels like they took time to actually make sure that that was like a good process, Like I feel like a lot of games like the healing is too strong or the damage is too much, but like I watched like Nico and Zav, I think is what he calls himself now. And both of them, like, it just seems like it's just well balanced, right? It's just the easiest way of saying it. Which
I mean, at the end of the day, it's still an MMO, right? So you definitely have some balance issues here and there, and they have some issues with damage mitigation, actually. So shielding and damage reduction buffs, because those are a little bit overwhelming in the sense that there's not really any counterplay potential besides running away from them. So, but there is some imbalances definitely apparent, but overall, you could probably get to the top with the worst class. And I mean, that's pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good sign for sure.
So I'm also kind of curious how the monetization works as well, because people were saying a lot about how many pay-to-win aspects there were in the Korean version. But if that doesn't affect PvP and it only affects PvE, is that another thing where like it's the people who are racing for world first who are pulling out their wallets so they can like get gear faster or something? Like what's the drive to spend money there?
So generally speaking, I would say, like what I always say when people ask if the game's pay to win, I always say yes and no. For as things like PvP, as you said, and Hell mode, which is the hardest difficulty rates, there's no gear relevance at all. So pay to winning doesn't really matter. Outside of that, though, actually getting your character stronger and getting to the content faster, I guess, you can pay for. There's also things like in BDO where you can, like a costume gives you very slight benefits depending on the rarity of it, or your pet actually gives you some benefits as well. So, there's definitely some monetization that the West will think is quite problematic, and I agree with that. But since I'm just playing equalized content anyways, it doesn't really affect me as much. But generally speaking, the biggest bottleneck of the hard PvP stuff and so on is actually just the mechanics. I know that's like an excuse a lot of pay-to-win games have, but generally speaking, that's actually the case. So even if you're, I don't know, 200 gear score higher than the other person in the raid, it doesn't mean you will actually do better, because it's a lot of the raids is focused on mechanics mainly. So yes, you can get stronger. Yes, it is in that sense pay to win for sure, but it doesn't affect you as much as it would you in other games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm really actually looking forward to about Lost Ark, is that it gives me kind of the, isometric top-down ARPG feeling, but it actually seems like it has meaningful MMO mechanics. Because, all these other ARPGs, like I'm playing Diablo 2 Resurrected right now, but whether it's, D3 or Path of Exile or all these other games, they inevitably come down to just sort of like crazy gear scaling and like spamming teleport and one-shotting everything. And like, I don't know, it never felt as interesting as like a proper, theme park game with well thought out bosses. And, and it was never as satisfying to kill a boss in Path of Exile as it was to kill a boss in like, Dark Souls or even like Final Fantasy 14. So I'm looking forward to this type of combat, but actually having like meaningful mechanics to do as well. Does the combat in Lost Ark feel like Diablo-y to you, or does it feel more like a different game? Like what would you compare it to?
To me, it's like it almost feels like a fighting game in a way, at least in PvP, because you can juggle people in the air, a little bit like BDO as well. But yeah, I would say something more along the lines of a mix between like League and BDO, maybe. If I had to put my finger on it, it's kind of hard to do because it does feel quite different, but it's a full action MMO, no tab targeting. So I would say like a mix between League and BDO. It feels to me.
Yeah, I've always wanted like a MOBA style game to be an MMO. Like for characters to be designed in that way. Albion kind of tried it, but the way they design their combat is a little chunky. But I've always thought it would be amazing if you had like Dota style heroes that played out in an MMO setting. And so it looks like Lost Ark might be the closest thing that we're going to get to that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty cool to see how it plays out. And like, one things I'm really hopeful for is like, this is, if it, like, Lost Ark's been hugely successful, and that means I think a lot of other people might actually try to use the isometric, kind of profile for another MMO in the future, or like other genres, right? That typically don't have those. Because I think that it's like an interesting hybrid from what we've seen so far. So I guess the
Yeah,
main
I think the only biggest like pay to win or like annoying complaint that I used to always hear was how like, so you have like limited dungeon runs and stuff like that per week, right? And there was like a thing where you could make a new alt, and that alt could also run dungeons and things, so it became like an alt simulator. I don't know if it's still like that, but that was one of the complaints that I heard the most a couple years back.
Yeah, that's also something that I always complain about, and it's still a thing, but they have recently actually worked on removing a lot of that. A lot of the content now actually doesn't give you gold anymore, which is the equivalent in BDO to silver, basically, which you can pay anything with, basically. And they removed that for a lot of things in the end game content department. So yes, having multiple characters is still very good if you want to be at the top of the PvE scene, but it's not even close to be as required as it used to be, if that makes sense.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah, I feel like that was. Do you think that was like in response to the NA audience, right? Or do you think that was like just them in general trying to make their game better because they have the opportunity to now?
Not sure, actually. I'm not really sure how much they want to cater to the West, although I think obviously they want to make money at the end of the day, but not sure. Not sure.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is like a gameplay improvement versus a monetization improvement. Because was the alternative to having a bunch of alts, was the alternative just like spending more money in the cash shop, basically, or were those separate things?
Yes, you can technically just play a single character and pay to win your progression. You could do that. But at the same time, the gold that was taken away now from a lot of content has also been taken away from a lot of upgrade costs and stuff. So they basically just try to make it less tedious, I guess, in general.
Wow,
More
that's
streamlined instead of having to have like 5 alts basically.
surprising for a Korean company to become that self-aware.
I'm sure though that there will be still plenty of people playing 5 alts though, but
I mean,
generally
that's gonna be me, whether it's good or not. I'm gonna have 15 alts, so
it's
yeah.
That's
definitely
like
gonna
the
be good. You will
trademark of
definitely
Moro.
be...
All right. Well, do we have any other thoughts on Lost Ark? I know we kind of sorry for interrogating you so much. I've definitely been curious about the game
Yeah,
for a long
I'm-
time though, and I've been like
You can-
really on the fence of whether or not I'm going to download the Russian game because I don't know if that's going to make it more or less fun for me in the long run. So I've been agonizing over it.
I mean, I would recommend like if you don't have any for anyone that wants to try it out, a lot of VPNs have like free trials for a couple days. So if you don't want to super commit to it and like get all the information already and know everything already, you could just play it for a weekend and see if you like it or not. That's my recommendation.
Absolutely, that's a good recommendation for it.
So besides Lost Ark, you get hooked on anything else lately?
I mean, I will be playing the shit out of New World on launch.
Did you go pretty hard on the betas?
Yeah, I on the closed beta, so the first one this year we had, I got to level 60 and tested out all the end game stuff. I think Potion did that too, if I remember correctly. And then on the other one, I got to like level 30, just trying out some builds. But yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, we pretty much did the same thing. Do you see that as a game that you're going to be able to main for a long time?
No.
But you're also in the same boat as we
pretty
are.
much everyone seemed to be in the same boat about that game. Super excited to play it and not really thinking that it's going to last more than a month or two. But
I think it's unique enough for it to be fun for a little bit. So like it's a little bit of a different take to MMOs, I feel like, in a couple of ways, but generally long term, I don't see it, at least not right now.
I think if they leaned into what makes the game different instead of trying to like make it more theme parky, if they made it more about like open world emergent content and fort fights and stuff like that, I actually think it could last a while. I think the fact that they're going so hard into spending all their development resources on things like dungeons is what's kind of shooting them in the foot right now. How do you feel about it?
I thought that like from last, I played it in the preview last year as well, which was like I think almost basically a year ago, right? And I thought the game was definitely a lot worse because it didn't have the outpost rush stuff, and although the dungeons aren't anything crazy, I think they added a little bit of value to the end game at least, and I guess a little bit to the leveling as well. But I also do think they tuned down a lot of the other stuff that I found like quite fun, which was, for example, the breaches, which are basically useless now, unless they nerf everything. In preview, for example, you could level in breaches from like 30 to max level, and it was really good. And other things like that, I guess. But yeah, I agree. I think they should use their little niche a little better and not focus so much on traditional content.
Do you think it's like it was an oversight for them to make the outpost rush locked until level 60? Because like I feel like that should definitely have been something that people can do from like level 20 just to get people like engaged in like the combat and make it more open. Because I feel like a lot of people, a large amount of the audience is either going to get shied away before they even hit level 60 or just not even know that you can play that kind of team based mode PvP.
It's strange because like you get these, you get your attributes, you get like gear stats, and the way they decided to balance is not, instead of bringing everybody up or bringing everybody down to the same common denominator for it, right? The way they've designed the game is just inherently they have to make it balanced for something, and it's just easier for them to do 60 because all the content is going to be 60 already and balanced around it, so they don't have to do any additional balancing there, right? But
It's kind of like the forts, right? How the cannons are tuned to level 60. So if they did lower level versions to Outpost Rush, are there like minions you spawn or like siege weapons that you use in Outpost Rush as well? Like what
yeah,
are the elements they'd have to balance?
you'd have to balance the forts, which have their own doors, the fort towers. They have beasts that are level 60, elite monsters are level 60. Then you have player versus player combat itself. I guess those would be the... Oh, yeah, and then they have field bosses as well.
Yeah, I guess they would have to spend some time developing different versions of that. It's interesting because you can tell that their philosophy about progression is very like it's very much. I feel like making the time old MMO mistake of like the game starts at max level rather than the game starts at level 1.
Mm.
And I think that was even what caused their whole monetization controversy, back before the beta, where they were already talking about selling XP boosts, and their justification for that was, well, after the game's been out for 6 months, no one's going to want to level because everyone will already be maxed out. And it's like, well, why'd you design your game that way? Like, that's not the player's fault. Why do we have to pay money because you made the 1 to 59 experience inferior? Like, the game should start at level 1, or you should get rid of leveling altogether.
It's kind of interesting. One thing that's a big issue, like literally because yesterday came out with server release times, and they're going to try doing staggered launches for the first time, which I feel like that's a huge mistake.
I saw that.
Did you see the name part?
What? What about it?
I'm pretty sure I saw that on someone's stream earlier that the names that you actually pick are global.
Yeah.
Meaning, a lot of people will have to go to EU, wake up at 2 a.m. and get their names.
Yeah, it's gonna be a huge issue, and apparently that's also company. It's also company name. So like, if you want your company name, you have to go to EU, make a character, then make a company, because it's locked to your account for 90 days, is what Tolly was saying, and he got the information from the developers or someone from New World at least.
I love Morland's reaction.
Why?
It's crazy.
I
dude.
could understand if it was region based, because surely they have plans to like merge the NAE servers together once they start to die. But why would Europe and NA be connected in terms of names? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could give you an answer.
Well, rip anybody that like had something to do the day of release and wasn't gonna be able to log on to like EU servers a couple hours ahead. Gosh, bro.
What also makes the
I mean, I
content...
guess the EU servers are going to be coming up so like early for me anyways that I'll probably still be awake the day before, so maybe I will get on and grab our name, but that's so weird.
But like, if you grab the name on EU, you won't be able to transfer it to your world for like 30 days, right? So it's like, will the game even still be the main focus after a month?
Oh, that's
'Cause there's
fucking that's so weird, dude.
Yeah, so there's really isn't even any point in trying to snipe your name on EU because again, obviously you have like the 30-day name recycle process.
Wait, how's the name recycle thing work?
It was like, because I remember when I tried to delete characters or my first character on during the first beta during the summer, and I deleted my character and I made, I had to make prints because my other one was taken and I messed up. Well, then I went back and tried to remake that on another world like a couple days later when I wanted to try some level 1 like early level stuff, and I still couldn't make it. And that was like a week later. So like, I'm not sure
I remember that.
how long it's gonna be.
That's strange.
Kind of weird, dude.
Just seems like a massive oversight, honestly.
Dude, I don't know why they're doing that. That's crazy, but I mean, it kind of makes sense. I guess they're just like preparing ahead of time for some kind of merge between NA and EU, I guess.
You
Yeah, we're
can't
gonna have
merge
one
NA
server.
and EU.
I mean, obviously,
can't,
it'll
you
be
can never
bad,
merge
but
NA and EU. Like, I understand if they want to merge
Fucking
NA East with the rest of NA East, but you can't merge NA and EU. Come on.
yeah, I don't know what they're thinking, dude. Hopefully, they come out and say something on Twitter, but fuck if I know. That's kind of weird.
I posted the link in the guest chat, by the way, if you want to see it.
Man, that's interesting. Yeah, I was not aware of that.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to wake up super early and then stream on the EU server and then level up and then do it again when it comes out on NA East.
I'm just gonna name my character Kim Mellon 1337 and call it a day. You know what annoys me even more than that, though? The fact that you still can't select a fucking starter city.
Yeah.
So like you log into the game and you have a random starter town between 4 different locations that are all like a 20-minute run apart from each other.
And
With
then,
high-level mobs that'll kill you along the way.
You can't even like delete and make a new character because you know day one queues are gonna be fucking long as shit. So you
Dude,
just gonna have to like go for it. Go with
If
it.
I get first light, I'm restarting. There's no way I'm gonna chance getting stuck on the main quest again for launch.
You gonna wait in queue for 6 hours or something?
I mean, the servers come up so early in the morning. I don't think it'll be 6 hours, but yeah, if I get first light, I'm definitely deleting and starting over and taking the chance.
Yeah. Dude, and then imagine if they haven't fixed the main quest bug shit. So it's
That's
like,
what I'm saying, dude. Like I haven't
God.
seen any patch notes. I don't even know if they're aware of this shit.
Yeah, I checked before the podcast. They don't have any patch notes up on the forums right now. They only have their server list.
I mean, the last beta introduced more bugs than it fixed, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like,
Yeah, Moral
shit
had
makes
this
me
weird
nervous.
bug where he like literally couldn't do the main quest line. He was bricked.
Yep, hard
yeah,
bricked.
it was weird is a good way of putting it. It was a little weird. I couldn't play the fucking main story quest. A little unusual.
I think it's gonna be like very interesting. It's just, it seems like the longer it takes the game to come out, the worse it's getting. So I think they should maybe even release a couple days early at this point. You know, just get it out a couple days early and just call it a wrap, and have like an apology for doing the staggered launches.
I mean, there's like no way. I mean, there is a way where they could delay it, but bro, they're like a couple, they're a weekend away. Like at this point, I don't think there is any like not releasing it.
Oh no, they can't delay it now.
No,
unless there's some sort of critical failure with their infrastructure. There's no way it gets delayed again.
I mean, if Blizzard standards is still the golden standard for video game releases, then they're fine. You know, then New World is fine.
But yeah, I definitely think it'll be at least 3 weeks of like fun, a lot of fun. Past that, the ball is kind of in their court to see what they do to keep it alive.
Well, they've already announced they're doing special Twitch Prime drops, starting, I guess it's like early October. It's gonna be like, I think, Halloween in theme or something.
Wow.
They're also doing Twitch drops for everybody who participated in, all the streamers who participated in the New World Battle for Azeroth. So you get your own,
just for them? That's nice.
yeah, they get custom Twitch drops only for them.
That's great. Thanks, Amazon.
I'm trying to think, what else was there? Yeah, what do you got? I guess EU's is going to have the worst queues in the history of video games because of this, right? Because everyone's going to try to get on there super early, and it's going to have like twice the flood that it usually would.
I don't know. They seem to increase the server capacity quite a bit in the last beta, so maybe the queues won't be as bad as we think.
There was another cryptic New World Twitter post that said you can adventure with over 1,000 people at the same time on the same server. Whatever that means.
I don't know what that means either. I try not to take their Twitter too seriously. They post some real dumb shit.
Dude, I don't know who
I'm pretty sure it's
PR
just some
guys
social
are.
media intern who doesn't actually play the game.
He's done a pretty good job. He made like what was it, a time, like it was it he like a server listing. He posted it. Apparently did it internal. He made like a second tweet later on. He apologized for listing one server twice on it. So I don't know. I feel like this weird dude's doing okay. Done a good job.
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
making
I've seen their Twitter account say some very, very dumb things in back and forths with the players. So
Did you see
I take it all with a grain of salt.
what was this thing at Gamescom, the Twitch, like this interview that they had?
Oh yeah.
New- Oh
They
my
had an
God.
interview with Scott Lane.
I think there was like a live interview with, it wasn't Scott Lane, I don't think. But it was so bad that it's not worth mentioning anyways. But like even the upper people over there tell a lot of weird things. So
the one that they did the one I saw with Scott Lane was they said, "Hey, we know people want to know about have more magical feeling stuff in the game, and we know people want new weapons, so we're going to do magical weapons." And then then they showed a picture of the Void Gauntlet and potentially like the Lightning Gauntlet, maybe. So, but that was the only thing I really saw, and they hinted that they're going to do something for Halloween and Christmas.
Dude, all they have to do is make it so that when you socket certain gems in your weapon, they glow, or they have like an ice aura or like a fire aura.
Dude, I thought it was
fucking
like that,
sweet,
right?
dude.
Like in one of the original previews, you could see like a fire, like a flaming sword and things like that.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, how hard is it to have flaming swords? Asheron's Call had flaming swords.
So
Fucking
I don't know what
2000.
happened to that.
I saw someone have a void crystal in their spear, and it was glowing purple. So
Yeah, it gives you like a little hue, like a tint, right? Like little particles that come out the tip of it when you put it in
Yeah,
the
I guess
spear.
that's true. They do glow a little bit, but they need to
Yeah,
burst into flames.
Yeah, you also have like a little particle effects when you like slash with your, freeze gem hatchet.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a little kind of off topic, but so I know we talked about the Riot, like we are kind of meme talking about the Riot MMO in the past, like maybe it was the week before last. But I don't know if you guys saw that the people making the Riot MMO, they got the lead quest designer from The Witcher 3. They hired him. So he's going to be the guy designing the quests in the new Riot MMO.
I feel so. That's honestly,
Awesome.
It's awesome because he was put onto the project for Cyberpunk as like a last resort, trying to patch everything together in like the last couple months, and like that's what really saved that game from being a complete 100% disaster. So I think that's huge, having that on the on their team. Wow.
I just hope
I think the
won't be
quests in
mobile crossplay.
Cyberpunk were pretty good when they worked.
Yeah, I think they did a good job.
Witcher 3 had some really, really nice quest lines. So if he even replicates a margin of how good the Witcher 3 quests were in the Riot MMO, it could be really awesome. But yeah, I saw that on Reddit a couple days ago, and I was like, damn, because they did like a post about it. It was like a Twitter post or something about it.
I'm very excited.
What made the quest in that game so good? Was it the story, or was it like
it was a combination of like the story, and it didn't feel like lifeless. It didn't feel like a whole lot of like gopher, like go for this, go for that. It had felt like the story was engaging behind it, and a lot of it felt like you didn't feel like you were doing dauntless tasks a lot of the time.
Yeah, it was like you'd find like a boy with an injured leg or something, right? And then he would have you do something actually like unique and meaningful to his particular situation, instead of just go kill 5 chickens and bring him some meat, So like they actually had like and they're all like I guess a good way of putting it would be like they're like miniature storylines. Like you would have like a full like introduction like to story, then you'd have like a main plot, and then you'd have a conclusion, and it's like every side story had that element to it. So you actually got like a satisfying feeling when you helped a kid or whatever. You'd like, oh, I actually changed the game world a little bit,
And then in like different decisions that you made during certain quests, it kind of changed the outcome of the way the ending for the story progressed. So you had your own little bit of like interjection. I liked it. I liked Witcher 3.
I don't like single player games, but I loved Witcher, so it was great.
I have not played through the entire game yet. Maybe that'll be what I do on one of my off days.
Dude, there's so many quests in that game. So much shit. So much stuff to do.
was going to ask
So, yeah,
something
that's
about
true.
New World, but I forgot what it was. Can't remember. I was going to ask, like I was going to mention, I did some of the math on the in-game gear farms, and they are outrageous, for like such a nuanced amount of power. So they have these, arenas where you can go fight like a Spriggan, or you go fight like the Siren, or different stuff like that. And in those boss fights, you have to get like an orb to go, and do them. Well, I did the math on it. It's like, even if it's like 5 hours, I think, like min-maxing it to get all the ingredients in order to make one orb. So if you have a 5-man team, it's 1 hour per match you're doing of that. But but the thing is, like, there's only one good legendary from those arenas. Like, it'll put like one legendary ice gauntlet is from the one that's in Eden Grove, and so let's say it's a 1% drop rate. You're looking at basically 20 hours of grinding plus the actual arenas, as a group of players doing it. And I think it's like a really, really long grind for only one item, right? It's not like something
You
for
were a
everybody.
Gwent main?
Say it again?
So, like, I had a similar thing where it was like, what was the one? It's like the Asian-y inspired, or the region, like the Oriental inspired region, all the way to the left. Was it Eben Scale?
Yep.
Or yeah, that I had a similar thing where it's like, how would I spam this dungeon? Because there was a heal staff that I wanted. It was like plus 26% healing output, and like I ran it a shit ton of times, and like I never got it. So, and that was an easier one to get runs for, because the quest gives you one for free, and so many people had like their little orb to enter, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, well, what happens when you don't have a steady supply of like new people getting
Yeah.
orbs? And it's like you got to spend hours collecting the materials to craft the orbs. And
Yeah,
so yeah, I see what you're talking about.
I'm actually thinking about figuring out what dungeon I want to spam ahead of time, and then when launch happens, making sure I'm like, oh, I'm happy to be doing carries for this one. Would you like to join me? Because
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing, because it's like you definitely want to get in
Yeah.
early when people are still constantly running it.
Because once that's gone, like once that supply is gone, like it's gonna be 100 times the effort to be able to get in those, like time wise. So
To those items specifically, though, I'm pretty sure in the open beta they buffed those drop rates to specific dungeon drops.
yeah,
When they buffed all of the mobs as well.
I do think they've increased it, but I just don't know, because the problem is that it's not like everybody in your party has something to go for. It's only one item. So like Evan Skell is like or eating, or what's it called? What's the one that you're talking about, Kerr?
Yeah, Eben Scale,
Yeah,
I
Evan
wanted the life staff, right?
Evan Scale's only life staff. So like you got to find a whole group of life staff users who want to farm that. It just seemed, if it had something for everybody, I think it'd be a little easier, right? Because then everybody'd be interested in farming the materials to go and do it late game.
Well, there was a couple different ones in there. There was like a really nice bow that was in there. But the biggest thing was that, like, if one of your party members gets it, there's no way for you guys to trade it to each other because they bind on pickup. That was like the most annoying part. So it's like, if you're spamming for it and some of your guildies or whoever gets the said item that you want and they don't need it, well, it's like, well, you're fucked. You still got to keep running because, you can't trade it. So it would have been nice if there was some way to like trade those items like before you leave, or some kind of like loot cache thing where you can like pass if you don't need it or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to trade your to your party members who did it with you for like maybe the next 2 hours or something, like they do in Diablo 3. Something
Yeah, or
like
like
that.
every theme park game ever, where
Yeah,
you can roll
exactly,
on items.
right?
Yeah, it's a little strange that they neglected that.
And it's I still understand the benefit of it, other than like it's a little simpler, right? Like programming wise, but
I think it's just it's another thing. It's just a consequence of the game being rushed. I'm sure at some point, 3 months from now, it'll be different. But
yeah,
I
think
agree.
there's just so many things that they're trying to push all at once.
Well, I thought 1.5 years ago that we would have swimming by now, but
Well, listen,
We
when
still
you're in
don't.
armor, you're not going to be able to
Have
swim, all right? You're going
You
to
don't
sink to the
enjoy walking
bottom.
on the bottom of the ocean?
they said anything about swimming at all?
I don't think so.
No. I would like to see it where the heavier armor that you're wearing, the quicker you run out of stamina and sink to the bottom. And then you have like a brief swimming animation if you're in heavy, right? You just kind of go out there and you just go down. If you're in like light armor, you get to swim like a couple feet and then you go down. And so then if you could actually like take off all your armor and everything, you could swim around a little bit, you know, and actually like interact with the mechanic. I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be at least. People would still complain about it and be like, "I can't. I sink too fast. This is not good." But I don't. I think like a little bit. It would help the immersion of the game a lot. Not sinking instantly into the bottom of the ocean and walking on the floor like you're some sea monster.
It is staggeringly immersion breaking when the first time you go into water in that game.
I still can't remember what my question was. I don't know. For New World.
That's about all I could think of, right? Is there really anything else about
Do you
it?
guys okay, so here's the next thing I'm struggling with. Do you guys think that the servers are actually going to come up when they say they're going to come up? Because every time there's been a beta, the servers have come up an hour and a half early. And they're already coming up real fucking early. So
It's 100% going up an hour early.
Every
think so,
that's what I
too.
think, dude. That's how kind of how I feel. I'm gonna have to get up at 3 a.m.
It's happened 3 times in a row, so the chances that happens a 4th time is pretty high.
I definitely would prepare for it to go live an hour earlier. Anything earlier than that, whatever, but I definitely would be ready an hour early. Or like turn your Discord alerts on, and once the Aftershock Discord starts going crazy.
Yeah,
Our build is
I'm not
actually
gonna do
meeting
that
up 2
because
hours
fucking
early.
Tim pings everyone 7 times a day.
True.
True, actually.
We're going to be on. Have you announced that publicly? What we're going to be on the server?
Yeah, I think everyone knows.
Valhalla, right?
Yeah,
Valhalla.
which is the NA East PvP server. So it's going to be packed. So I'm looking forward to that at the same time as not looking forward to the queues. So I'm like 50-50 on this, not playing on EU and just waking up at the proper time and just going, because once you get off and get back on the next day, like the queues are just gonna be outrageous. At least on our server. So I feel like I kind of have to like this go as long as possible first day.
Yeah, I definitely I'm not gonna bother logging on EU to try to like snipe a name, especially because like what am I gonna do, right? If I log on EU and I get a name, right, and then I want to delete that character to free the name up at a later date after waiting the whatever period, like you can't. We didn't have a way to rename characters. So what am I gonna do? Make a new character and then level to 60 again? Like there's no shot.
I think the
Right?
only reason you would do that is if you wanted to get like the name God or something like that and resell it. I was watching Tali and he said that. I was like, that's, we'll make $1,000. That's the way to make $1,000.
Selling names in New Worlds?
Yeah, I mean,
where do you even go to sell them?
You sell them for 100,000 gold in game. That's definitely how you do it. But no,
It happened to me before, actually. Someone messaged me on it was actually an Instagram account. They wanted that name, and he was like, I'm offering you $300 straight up. I just want the name." And I'm like, okay, sure, dude. That happens, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, people like that kind of stuff, especially like big streamers. Like if you happen to get like a big streamer's name, like, and they come back to the game, I mean, they'll pay a little bit of money for that.
So you just hold their name hostage?
I mean, that's one way of playing it. I see it as a negotiation, right? But no,
Interesting.
I think that's going to be definitely something that people try doing, especially since EU comes up early. A lot of people are going to realize that name reservation thing is a thing now, and I think there's going to be a lot of those people try taking.
Well, I've got a bunch of backup names, so I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
I'll just add like 5 extra R's.
What is like For the events, what do you think they're going to do for the events, or what would you like to see? Like, what have you seen for Halloween events or Christmas events and other games you would like to see in New World? Since they've hinted they're going to do that.
I think, dude, like the sky is the limit for this because so Amazon, who is publishing this, right, slash owner of this, they also own Twitch, so they have complete control over the linkage between the two. So they can do so much when it comes to events, right? Whether it's like, you know, different rewards, changing the atmosphere. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they can do, but will they do it? I guess is the real question, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I kind of assume they would do that. I really just interested in in-game because if any type of attendance reward type system, you can put in a new package called Twitch Drops, but eventually people will learn that it's just attendance rewards, and then they get tired of doing it. And you can see that in BDO where they did Twitch Drops for like 2 months straight. And then people just kind of got tired of like sitting around for Twitch Drops all day long, you know? Because people, you know, they learn. They're not dumb. At least not all of them. So I feel like I'm really curious what's going to happen in game. You know, are they going to release like the Void Gauntlet for Halloween, and that's going to be like the Halloween themed weapon? Are they going to release like an ice staff or something for Christmas? Like, are they going to have like a new game mode or something? I don't know. That's what I kind of want to see, like what they're going to do.
New weapon every holiday.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have like events in game, but that might be a little bit asking too much, right? Having like a really spicy like Halloween event with, you know, Brightwood or something would be incredible, but I don't think they're going to do that.
They should just make it so that one of the zones is full PvP for the whole month of October.
Please,
oh, all of October, Brightwood's full PvP. Oh, that'd be good. That'd be so much fun. You could add like a Halloween boss even out on the fields you have to fight for.
I mean, they can do anything. They could even like have different toggleable like animations depending on like the season or something like that. I mean, they can do anything, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think field bosses would be great in that game as long as they were in PvP areas.
Yeah.
I'd really like them to do some kind of like capture the flag type shit. That would be freaking awesome.
In open
Warzone
world.
Gulch.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for some of our big MMO to copy Hellgates. That when that happens and that MMO explodes in popularity, I mean it's just gonna be the new staple of MMOs at that point.
There's a lot of really underrated PvP content in Albion that is just overlooked by their developers because the game is such a, you know, it's such a niche game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the way they do castles in Albion is so vastly improved over the way that New World does forts. Like, if you want to make an open world PvP game, Albion's been doing trial and error for 5 years now. They figured a couple things out. I feel like people should, you know, these devs should pay more attention to that game.
Absolutely.
I agree, dude. I will always wholeheartedly be a big fan of Hellgates, and it's still like to this day my favorite PvP slash PvE mode out of any game, which is weird to say because people are like Albion, like good, like PvE PvP game mode, but Hellgates was just so good, such a staple.
Mm-hmm. What else do we have to talk about for New World? I can't really think of anything else. The servers were the big topic of the day because everybody was upset about the staggered launches and the naming.
Yeah, now that I know about it, I'm upset.
I think it's a 9-hour difference between NA being released and EU being released. NA West.
Sounds about right. Whatever the time difference is.
Yeah, something like that.
Do you guys think there's going to be new weapons on launch day?
No. I do think there's going to be some, like a new expedition pretty close after launch in Shattering Mountain. Sir Medieval did like a good video on that where someone glitched behind the little wall where the captain used to be up there. And now it goes down farther and there's like an expedition portal wall there. So it does seem like they're going to add an expedition portal, and people are thinking there is an orb in the database right now for Isabella's lair. So, and Isabella's like the main villain bad guy, right? So I think that's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah,
to
that
see.
makes sense. They just added post 40 main story quest in the closed beta, but I don't think a lot of people got far enough to see where it goes. So yeah, I'm sure that the main story will be somewhat finished when the game launches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's gonna be exciting because we didn't get to see any of that, and that's good. That's a good amount of content that we have to go through. I think I'm gonna kind of wait to kind of do all that because I think some of those items that drop based on your gear score. So I'm going to kind of wait until I have pretty high gear score to go do those to ensure that I make sure those drop at the highest gear score possible for me.
That's such an unfortunate system.
Yeah.
Also a really big problem, I think.
Yeah, it makes it where you either get way too rewarded for doing it by getting like a 600 gear score piece, which would otherwise be very hard to get, or you get something that is only slightly better and it quickly gets replaced by the time you get better gear. So in both cases, you know, one's getting too rewarded, and then the other one gets replaced fairly quickly. And some of those weapons are pretty, like some of the accessories are pretty nice.
Yeah, you do the same, you put in the same effort and clear the same content as someone else, but you get a different reward just because you've gotten other rewards previously. Like, I don't know, very, very bizarre system to me.
Mm-hmm. I guess looking forward to the main storyline a little bit more. I'm hoping that they've had some like lessons learned. But if they added the entire storyline to the end, I feel like that's going to be very rushed. You know, like that. There's no way that was like a short process. So
Yeah, well,
Honestly,
they definitely added some in the closed beta. So I think that, you know, their intention is to try to have the main story finished by launch. We'll see.
So
if it's overall still the same, to be honest, I'm probably not even gonna bother doing the main quest line past like the first early levels to get the easy gold. But like, especially if you have like the in-game content, you need like 2 or 3 people in your party that has the Azoth staff, and everybody doesn't even need it. So if it's too tedious slash too much effort, I'm probably not even gonna do the main storyline personally.
I think you will need the Azoth staff upgrades. No, for a couple like breaches, for example.
Only one person in your group needs it.
Well, like we could need more than that for the in-game content, right?
Now,
Yeah, what if the final dungeon
eventually,
requires 5?
if the final dungeon requires 5, then fuck it, dude. I'll be level 60 doing the main quest line. Because that's almost what it was like on the beta.
Yeah, that's one thing I think they might release on launch would be the new expedition, because if the Isabella is like a main part of the storyline, really, really big part of it. So I could see that expedition being part of launch, and you know that would be like a final surprise, and I think that'd be fairly enjoyable for the player base. I don't know about weapons though. I feel like they're too slow developing weapons. Like they developed 3 weapons in an entire year. So I don't really see them doing another one at launch, right? They'll probably do one, for an event like Halloween or something.
I mean, surely they have more weapons, right? I mean, even in the trailer, they showed off the great sword. I just think that like they're probably just not revealing all of their cards yet.
Yeah, if they're smart, they'll spread some of that stuff out because the
Yeah.
game definitely is going to need some post-launch hype to reinvigorate it after the first month or two.
Agreed.
That's
So
true.
I think it's mostly them just like holding out on stuff to like add in, a couple weeks in just to kind of give like, oh, I want to come back and mess around with this weapon or like, this content if they're smart anyway.
Mm.
I mean, I would hope that they have that, but I can honestly not really see that. I don't know if you felt the same, Potion.
Yeah.
And the end game dungeons, like the level 60 dungeons in the closed beta, which was like what 1.5 months ago or something, was so bugged. Like it felt like they wanted to just push those dungeons into playable territory, so people felt more relief that there's actually content. So I don't know if they have a lot planned.
I mean, even in the early dungeons, I remember trying to help Morlin run the dungeon with what's his name? I forget the guy that you meet on the beach at the start of the game. But
Thorpe.
Yeah, we were trying to like help Moreland run the dungeon with Thorpe, and every time Moreland was in the party, the door, like the one of the doors, just wouldn't open, and we had to just stop and redo.
Yeah.
So you can definitely
I
feel like there was a lot of bugs and issues there.
I felt bad because we figured it out to be like if you kill the mobs, and then we went through with Moreland after telling him that, and then we still missed one of the mobs, so we still couldn't go through the door. And I genuinely felt bad after that because like he had done it like 4 times then or something like that, and hadn't been able to go through once.
Yeah, that was rough. And I mean, they, I think they fixed that one. I saw it in the patch notes for the closed beta, and like, I'm sure they will be quick to fix other things that are broken in the game as well. But it's still like when the game is launched and you're in that hype and everything's new and you're like trying to get through the content and level up and everything. Like even if they're fast to fix things, it's still too slow. Like the game shouldn't be launching broken to begin with. So
Yeah. Well, and one of the issues that I see is like the fixes that they're doing seem to be very quick temporary fixes and not very good long-term solutions. So I kind of fear that the game will like inevitably get worse optimization wise. And that's kind of like I think one of the things I'm worried about. And we saw that go from like the open beta to the closed beta. They did an impressive amount of fixes, but at the cost of stability of the game. We're having FPS issues, way more crashes were being reported, and we weren't getting any of that stuff before. And so I feel like that's a big price to pay, just to have those fixes so fast, right?
Yeah, I kind of give them a little bit of the benefit of doubt on that. If it is true with what they've been hinting and what people have been saying about them basically doubling the server caps, I kind of give them a little bit of a little leeway there. I don't know how much that is true or how much that is just people saying it, or the Twitter just hinting at it to kind of get that out there. But if they really did, double the server capacity, the amount of people on the server, I can see how you'd have more stability issues with that. But if they actually didn't raise the server caps, then it's like, oof, why? Why
Well,
is this
it's
happening
it's
this
not even just
close?
the server capacity stuff. Like it was like FPS, like more FPS stutters and stuff as well. And maybe that is tied to servers in some weird way. I mean, that is possible, I guess. I don't know how
well, if
that
you have more
works.
people and like your FPS is always bad in town, right? And so if you have more people around, you're gonna have lower FPS. I think that will sort sort itself out a bit later in the game as people move around more. The problem with a 3-day beta is like everyone's in the same area, so we can't really see if it's going to be improved or not because we're all just stacked on top of each other the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
I have a question actually. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I got it.
Okay. To you guys, even if New World releases and they've fixed the bugs and the dungeons are okay, do you think they can even keep up a good long-term player base without reworking the base systems a little bit? Because I feel like the combat in itself doesn't allow for too much depth either way. Even if they do release a lot of content, I feel like a lot of people will get bored just of the base systems, if that makes sense.
I think the combat is actually probably the best thing the game has going for it. If they can, there are a lot of systems that need rework, like the whole way that you gain influence for a territory in order to siege it and stuff like that. All that needs to be massively overhauled. And if they do that properly, then yeah, I think the game can grow a ton. Like that's what we saw with Albion, right? It's a primarily PvP focused game. Practically didn't even have PvE content for the first couple of years of its life cycle, and it's a game that's slowly increased rather than decreased in population over time. And so, yeah, if they focus on what actually makes the game good, then I think that they can retain a player base. But I think if their idea of content is just going to be to add a new weapon or a new dungeon every few months, then no, there's
Yeah,
no
that's what I
chance
mean.
that
That's what I
people
mean.
stick around.
Yeah, because like I really do like. I think the combat between two players is really good. It's actually a lot more in depth than a lot of people think. Because I see 3 skills and I think it's not very intuitive combat, but it actually really is because it allows you to like punish a player for their mistakes and you get punished for making the wrong mistake. But the biggest issue that comes with the PVE or with combat is in PVE, where it's like a lot of the mobs are just like health sponges. So it's just like you're just hacking and slashing on the mobs and not exactly like worrying about their mechanics and things like that. So I think that would be the biggest issue. It's like finding a way to implicate more like engaging PvE that's not just based around, hack and slash the mob down and have someone that just spam healing you through like any of the damage they do.
Yeah, I think what's probably going to happen. I kind of agree with you, Nico, too. Though, like on the early, I think in current capacity, it's not going to be there. I do think that's going to be. There's a good chance there's going to be something similar to like Final Fantasy 14, where they slowly move the game in the correct direction. And thankfully, I think their starting location on that is way better than a lot of where Final Fantasy was, right? So I think I do think they have a lot to like play with and a lot to like work with and like improve over time. I think their starting location on it's pretty good compared to where Final Fantasy was. And what we've seen so far is they've consistently gone in the right direction at a fairly fast pace compared to other games.
So would you like them to like add more abilities straight up, or what would be your solution to like add on to the current combat, if that makes sense?
I think the
current combat's great.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs more abilities at all.
I think it needs better balancing.
I think there needs to be better balancing for sure, and there needs to be more interesting things to fight over. But I mean, like how many hours did I spend PvPing in like Dark Souls 2 at the Belfry just using an ultra great sword? I mean, you don't even have abilities. You have a strong attack, a light attack, a rolling attack, and a running attack. And that was, I probably spent 500 hours just goofing around with that kind of combat. So I think the combat has a lot of promise already in its current state. I think that, they made some weird decisions as far as like the rolling and like the light roll animation cancel to have Omega speed. And like, I don't know if that kind of stuff is intended. So I definitely think there's some weird things that should be tweaked, but I don't actually think the game needs like more abilities or anything like that at all. I think the fundamentals are very sound. And if anything, just adding more abilities and like adding bigger and flashier things like they have with Ice Gauntlet and Great Axe, I think is actually moving the game in the wrong direction, kind of dumbing it down.
Yeah,
What about the melee auto aim?
The auto aim definitely needs to be toned down. Just like auto aim in FPS, you only need enough where it makes the game playable for like controller, right? And the same thing's true in this case. Like if you have auto aim, you only want to do it just enough where it makes the game less frustrating when you're like, I was aiming close enough at that guy, I should have hit him. It kind of casualizes the game a little bit, but also makes the game a little better. And I think they do a pretty bad job with the hitboxes in general, with like a lot of their stuff. So it kind of also aids the developers in not having to be so precise or like well managed with like making the hitbox wide enough or long enough and stuff like that. Helps out a little in that regard as well, I think. But yeah, I do think for me personally, I think their healing is probably the biggest problem that I think in PvP wise they need to probably fix. And I think slightly longer CC durations so that you can actually like lock somebody down. I think those are like the biggest. I disagree. Yeah, I think
less CC.
Well, because right now it's just run. That's all it is. And in heavy armor, people will literally get up so quickly when you do heavy armor and you have anti CC. It's just there's nothing you can do about it. Like I run a spear, I have 3 CCs, and I literally can't stop somebody. Right? Well, there's just no play for it.
I mean, this is a big reason why most melee weapons won't be viable at all, right?
Yeah, I think
like in most builds you have to play a great axe or a ranged weapon, or you can't kill anyone because they can just run away.
Yeah, I think like first they should probably look at healing, because healing will probably fix the majority of that, because you won't care near as much about someone running away for a few setions if they don't heal back up to full HP. Healing back up to full HP makes you care a lot more about them running away from you. So I think they should first look at healing, and after looking at healing, they should take a look and see if CCs need to be increased, or like heavy armor needs to be re-looked at or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't think more CC is the answer. If there's a problem with chasing, then there's a problem with chasing. I don't think that's necessarily the same thing as I can't CC somebody enough. There should be some maybe additional stagger if you get hit in the back or something like that. Like there's a lot of things that you can do specifically to fix the chasing scenario without making it so that CC overall starts to ruin the game. Because I think that's one of the big reasons why PvP is starting to feel less fun in New World, is because you have shit like the Ice Gauntlet that makes it so you can't control your character half the time, and it's way less enjoyable than it was before that meta emerged.
I do think there's a difference there though. Like there's some CCs that are way too short and others that are way too impactful. Like I think I personally think like the slows are a little too long on Ice Gauntlet, and I think that what's it called? Gravity Well currently it lasts 3 seconds. Where every other CC in the game lasts 1 second or a second and a half. So I think some are lasting too long and some are lasting too short. And it's the same thing with damage. Like some abilities are way too high damage and others are too low damage. So like I said, I think they need to look at like how CCs work after they look at healing. Healing being primarily food and potions, because you can have 2 potions and you can have a food buff, which heals you back up to full, gives you 10,000 HP, and you can do that in a relatively short period of time. So that's a little powerful in my opinion. So
yeah, it also increases the potential for 1vxing though. I mean, like there's builds that you could do where you can legit 4v1 in that game if you can properly disengage and heal up and re-engage and burst someone down, and it's like pretty difficult and pretty nuanced to be able to do that. And you need the ability to you need some ability to reset to be able to make something like that happen. There haven't been that many games that do time to kill well enough to where you can properly 1vx, other than just games where you're outgearing your opponents and one-shotting them. But like in terms of a game that has time to kill so that you can actually properly outskill an entire group of people and 1vx them, just based off of tactics and build rather than gear scaling, that's pretty fucking rare in a PvP game. And so I think that the game's underrated in that regard.
I do think though that is more of an indicator of like a niche player base getting a large advantage based on knowledge and gameplay. Like it's rewarding elite players and punishing more casual players, right? And I think that's
wouldn't you want the better player to
I think the better player should
PvP?
win, of course. But I do think there's a dangerous line there where the game just gets so competitive, or so elitism, right? That it's just not realistic, right?
Well,
I
guess
think
it
it's
just
that
depends. I like
complicated.
it though. I mean, it's either you have the way to just or differentiate yourself be in the skill of how you use your 2 weapons and outplay certain situations, right? By knowing different mechanics, or you just make it, oh, I have better gear than you and we're just going to smack each other and I'm going to win just because I have more stats in my stat stick. So like I think it's fine that it has like a skill element to it, right? Where you can like outplay situations, but obviously, depending on the situation, too much healing can be a bad thing.
Yeah, I think the current self-healing is way too high. You could argue about the because like all self-healing is doing right now is it makes it where you took a whole bunch of damage because you misplayed in a huge way, and then you get off scot-free because you run away for a couple seconds and you have your proper food buffs and everything. It just makes those mandatory. There's no like smart, educated choice there. There's no like decision making or anything that's interesting. It's just you have to have it, and if you don't have it, then you're just losing a huge advantage.
Don't have what?
Healing potions.
So you want the game to not have the healing potions?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I think it's right now they're too powerful, right? So jumping from they're too powerful to we shouldn't have them at all is not what I'm saying, right? They just need to be better balanced.
I just actually genuinely think the combat as it stands will not be complex for long. That's what I think. Like I feel like initially there will be a lot of depth to it and nuance to the 1vxing and so on. But once people understand like the meta and not everyone is running around with rapier spear or something, and people understand like how strong some weapons are, I feel like there won't be that much outplay potential anymore, if that makes sense.
It's just a mathematical equation because they haven't made any interesting choices for the player. Like right now, you have an advantage of knowledge, which is fine, and that works out to your advantage in a very large way. But like at the end of the day, everybody's going to be wearing the same armor set, generally the same weapons, and you're not going to have that advantage. Because right now, most people are not using food buff and are not using the yellow heal potion. Because yellow heal potion gives you mana and health, but doesn't share a cooldown with the regular potion.
I definitely agree with what Nico said, that because we even saw that during the 2-week beta, that after the first week, I mean, people knew what the meta was, right? It was like great axes everywhere and spam gravity well and the second extra hit on the heavy. So it's like, I don't think it'll be long for people to figure out the meta, and then you'll be seeing a whole lot of the same thing eventually. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think that's kind of like how it is in most of these games, right?
Yeah, I think that my main gripe is that it's just a mathematical equation right now, more than it is actual like unique build diversity and like player skill and stuff. There's no like teamwork that gets you ahead in any significant way. There's no like.
I can't agree with that at all, man.
I don't know. I disagree
because
because
massive difference between like our group of 10 and other groups of 10 that we came across.
That's just because we have.
I mean, even going by like healing, like being a healer, it was the difference was crazy. Like there's a lot of times where I was under leveled and under geared compared to a lot of people, but I was healing for more than 1 million over they were, just because of like positioning and like knowing when to use what and
but
where.
the
so like
siege
it's definitely there.
The siege is going to be like, it's not going to be a reason to play the game for very long unless you like the ego check of having more regions. I don't think it's gonna be there's only 4 variants of it, right? You're on offense and you win. There's on offense you will lose. There's defense and you win, and there's defense and you will lose. And then if you really want to, you can play different roles. But it takes so much effort to change your gear build, your weapon build, and your stat build and everything. That most people won't ever do that. So there's really only 4 ways you can really even experience siege in any significant capacity. And how many times you can experience those 4 different ways until you're bored of it.
Don't most competitive game modes have a binary win-loss?
Yeah, but there's a lot of variety baked into it. Like League of Legends, right? Like you have different champions every single match, right? You play a different lane, and then so there's so many different variables, and there's different items. So like the way you build changes every single time. The way you play changes every single time. You know, there's
some people play the same hero for 1,000 games in a row. And
yeah,
still have fun.
Yeah, but that's because they're playing. There's different champions they're playing every single time, right? Like there's so many different variables of it. You never have 2 games that are exactly like they're similar at all. They're not even close.
I don't think the meta's that rigid. I mean, I think rapier and spear are underwhelming in Siege, but every other weapon is good. I don't think that the meta is nearly as rigid as you're describing it.
I would even say that the most fun PvP that I had wasn't even during a siege, honestly.
No.
Siege,
yeah,
wasn't even a high. The biggest thing for me was like the open world, just fighting over the forts, capture points, and just like, just random PvP that started over people trying to push territories.
Yeah, I do think that's a lot more fun PvP for sure. And it's because there's a lot more variety to that, right? You're fighting a lot of different weapons. You're fighting a lot of different comps. There's a lot more baked in variety to open world PvP. Like every match won't.
So what they need to do is make open world PvP actually interesting.
I agree.
Add some things to fight over, and then boom, game's fixed.
Yeah, I do agree that it needs like more layers. So like what Potion was saying about there's just win or lose basically. Of course, that's a very simple way to put it, but League, for example, has so many layers of complexity that you have to understand before you even really can win on your own. Like minions, wave control, itemization, and so on and so forth, and awareness. And I feel like in New World, you obviously have it a little bit like BDO in a sense, obviously, with BDO sieges, where it's basically about shot calling and decision making as a group and not so much as an individual, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's pretty much how you would expect PvP in an MMO to unfold, though, right? I mean, you're not necessarily going to be controlling waves of creatures or anything. The players are the creatures. That's kind of the point of the massive PvP setting.
Like, I think Outpost Rush is a good example of what kind of a better example of how you can do an MMO, but it still kind of works. Because in Outpost Rush, you have a very, very diverse, you have a very, very diverse amount of monsters you're fighting, a very diverse amount of activities and like objectives you're going for, and those are like that makes every single match different. And like I guess if you want to boil it down a little bit more for Siege, right, you might take C first, then B first, then A first, but you still have to do that, and then you open one gate, maybe 3 gates if you want to, and then you take 1 point. But if you do Outpost Rush, you can win by gathering items, you can win by taking forts, you can win by killing players, you can win. There's a lot of different variety of ways you can earn points to win the game.
I think all of this just all funnels back to that same like conversation that most players are having. It's like, how are they going to add life to the game past the first month?
Yeah, 100%.
I think all of that just ties back into that entire conversation of, okay, it's going to be really fun for the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks. After that, the ball is in their court to see how they like add different things to fight for, give different kinds of content, be that in some kind of ranked arena, like people had data mined, anything like that, just to give some people different things to do and like set their mindset on more so than, keeping it the way it will be at release. And I mean, that's something that they'll have to answer, right? The ball will be in their court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess the open world would be my favorite solution. Having something to fight over, objectives to fight over, because I do feel like that offers the most natural and like, the most natural way of playing the game and the most variety in playing the game, because your location is going to naturally change like it would in like Fortnite or PUBG or League of Legends. Like the weapons you're fighting are going to change. The terrain's going to change. So maybe one time range is a little better, another time melee is a little better. I feel like that kind of naturally encourage different playstyles just by location alone. And then, on top of that, there's the whole group dynamic, right? One time you're outnumbered by a lot, another time you're undernumbered. Sometimes you're the Zerg, and I think that also plays into it because that changes how you have to play the game and although it's not fun to be greatly outnumbered or greatly undernumbered, it does make it enjoyable, thing to play around. Because if you beat somebody and you're like a 5-man crew and you beat an 8-man crew, you're like, holy smokes, like we tear those guys up, bro. Like, and that feels good to talk about and say and everything.
I think the best PvP we had this last beta was at that 25 elite spot. Were you guys there for that in Southern Monarch's Bluff?
Yeah, I was there for that. We had like this cave entrance that we're jumping down from the ceiling on top of them.
Yeah, we had this super cancer choke point fight inside the cave where everyone was miserable. But then, once the fight spilled out into the open world and we were all just out there, looking for each other and trying to hold the cave, that was really fucking fun. And I mean, we didn't have a direct objective that the game had given us, but we kind of made it our objective to own that elite rotation. And, I think if there's more stuff like that in the open world to fight over, that's where some of the best emergent content comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there anything else with New World? I feel like we kind of hit everything, right?
Beating it dead, waiting for it to come out.
Beat it to death.
You guys want to talk about some D2?
Diablo 2 Resurrected? Resurrected is
I saw so
Resurrected.
much shit about that. I saw so much shit. I'm not playing it, but I saw everyone complaining.
I like to keep old memories intact personally, so I didn't.
So it's been interesting for me because I didn't play it back in the day, so I don't have any nostalgia for it. And so, I don't think I'm enjoying it nearly as much as some people are. It's, some people are just having a fucking blast, like it's 2001 again. So, I'm happy for them, but I've definitely noticed some interesting things about this game. To me, after playing so much Path of Exile, this pretty much just feels like, version 0.5 of PoE. Like, it's very clear that PoE just took this game and copied it exactly and then just added a bunch more skills and levels to it. So there hasn't been anything particularly like new or exciting. Although there is like the more I play it, there's kind of a simplicity to these skill trees and the itemization that's really growing on me. One of the things that I didn't like about PoE is that the longer the game is out, the more convoluted the systems become, and you need you need like third party software with like a fucking hadron particle collider to produce enough processing power to figure out like what the right build is going to be. And with this game, I feel like it's a lot more even as like a new player, I have a fairly good sense for like what items are good and what items aren't. And the scaling doesn't seem to be, at least so far, I'm not that far into the game, but at least so far, it doesn't seem to scale like completely out of control. And even some of the stuff I get early in the game seems like it'll last for a while. So I think in terms of the progression and the itemization, it's been really interesting to see what this game did in 2001. But the most shocking thing to me has been how little has been added to the genre since then. Like, I didn't realize how far ahead of its time this game was. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe how behind its time Path of Exile is. I know a lot of people are going to get pissed off when I say that, but like, holy shit, it's been 2 decades, and it's like this game is still pretty close to other ARPGs that I've played in the last few years. They haven't really added much, dude. I don't know.
You also got to think that there's not really much competition in the space, right? Because like the most recent ones that I can think of that tried to cut out their own slice was that dumpster fire release of Wilson, I think it was, or whatever, and it didn't come out. It didn't come out very well. It wasn't very like popular. Had a lot of issues. But other than that, PoE has been kind of like undisturbed since like Diablo isn't really doing anything. Diablo came out with a mobile game, but they never like actually followed up and made a new, came out with Diablo 4, which I still don't think Diablo 4 will ever come out. I think they just dropped that like the video and content about that in response to that whole like Hong Kong backlash a while back, just to like quell people and silent like as a PR thing. But yeah, I mean, PoE doesn't really have any competition, right? So they just haven't really had to change a whole lot or innovate.
What's interesting though is that there is a massive number of like just silent people who still play Diablo 3. Did you guys know that that's one of the
Yeah,
top?
dude, people speedrun it still.
Well, even I'm just saying, like the casual player base is absurd. It's very weird because like you don't really see a lot of people streaming it or making videos on it the way that they do for PoE, and I think that's probably because it's a much more casual friendly game, right? Like PoE is pretty difficult to play casually. You pretty much have to like go and follow a build guide if you want to see any of the in game content.
My boy Bloodshed.
And you got to sync it. Yeah, whereas D3, you're just like, oh, my set got buffed by 80,000% this patch. I'll just go put that on and kill everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you guys know D3 is one of the top 10 highest selling video games of all time across all genres?
I still hop on D3 every couple months and we'll just like goof off a little bit and like,
bro, it's fucking crazy. It's like Minecraft, fucking Super Mario Brothers, Tetris, and like D3. Like that, like those are the type of games that are in that list. It's way the fuck up there.
Yeah, and like even though they're not making new content for it or anything, they still do these like season things where people can like unlock like wings and shit, like cosmetics, and people still like go hard to get them every new season.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I D3 is, I don't know. I think it's the game I've put a lot of time into is probably still my favorite games. Like it's a game I probably put easily over 1,000 hours in that game, and I still like had a blast playing it. And there's not another game that I can say that about. Even like Black Desert, like the longer I played it, the more gripes I kind of had with it. But like with Diablo 3, that's not the case, right? The more I play it, the more I'm like, I want to go in harder next season. I want to find out new builds. I want to find out something different. And I never got that feeling about D3, which was, I think, pretty special.
I mean, I think Moreland kind of hit on it really hard or really well, is that like it's more so the simplicity of like D2 and D3 in the sense that like if you want to play PoE and you're just kind of memeing around with a random build, you're probably not going to have a good time. But you already know the game is like super convoluted when any guide you look up for Path of Exile is recommending you to a GitHub program to download and map out your freaking like build and stuff. So like, I think that's one of the biggest like barriers, I would say, keeping people playing those games, just because they're so simple and a lot of people played them back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah, and I watched a video of what's his name, David Brevik, I think, one of the original like Diablo 1 creator, talking about what it was like, because they almost made Diablo 1 turn based, and he tried it out. He did like an experimental build where you could kill the monsters in real time, and he was like, holy shit, like this is so amazing. And he was talking about just sitting there clicking skeletons in his test build for like 30 minutes straight because it felt so good to do it in real time, back in 1990, whatever this was. And his description of the game, he basically said that his theory of why the game was fun was just the loot. Like, he didn't care about anything else. He didn't care about the story. He didn't care about like any of the RPG elements, really. He just liked getting loot. And like, I don't know, there's something kind of like something kind of like simple about that I think appeals to a lot of people. And like in Path of Exile, I don't know, it just doesn't feel the same way to get like drops. Like you're just confused most of the time. You have like so much loot that you need a secondary like filter to delete a lot of it off of your screen. And like this is like, so far my D2 experience, like even just looting like yellow items, I don't know how long this will last, but it's pretty exciting to get the loot. That's pretty much what the game is. Like, I don't know if anything beyond that really matters, but I also wonder if like that's why the genre is stagnating, because they're pretty much all just like number get bigger progression, dopamine simulators. Like, there's not really I don't know what the right solution is, but like it definitely just feels like nothing has really changed much in the last 20 years compared to like how much could have changed.
Yeah, and that was definitely why I got into them, because like I remember back when I got my first computer when I was like, we got our first computer when I was in like 7th or 8th grade back in the day, and like we didn't have internet on it, but it came with those like pre-installed little arcades that they have on the PCs, and it had this. It was like Fate. It was like Fate, which was this old like dungeon crawler esque kind of game, just like Diablo and all those, and it was just like going around doing dungeons and getting the loot and the drops, and it's like the dopamine from that. And I was like, okay, well, then that's what I discovered, like Diablo 2 and such like that, and Diablo 3. So I mean, I can definitely see why the genre hasn't really had to innovate a lot, because it's kind of hard to do a lot more with that, right?
You'd have to branch
Yeah,
out
there
a new
also like
area.
I don't know if
new
the
one coming?
complexity of PoE increases that dopamine, right? Like, there's a certain type of player that likes the complexity because it gives them a puzzle to solve. But I still think the vast majority of people who are playing ARPGs just want the dopamine hit of seeing a sweet drop. And so, like, I don't know if making the game more complex actually helps with that. I think making the game simpler so that people actually know what's good and what's bad, if anything, probably makes it feel more rewarding than adding all these, convoluted layers of complexity where people are suddenly not even sure if something's good or not.
Have you heard about the Project TL? That's like a new one also.
I've heard
from Korea though.
The name, I don't know anything about it though.
It's like a Korean ARPG or something.
Yeah, that one looks like graphically along the lines of Lost Ark-ish, I would say.
Yeah, I think kind of this type of ARPG combat is really played out at this point. If the genre is going to evolve, I feel like it needs to be along the lines of Lost Ark, where it becomes more like where your actions are more impactful, and it's not just like scaling your abilities as high as you can and spamming teleport and one-shotting everything. Like much more. I still feel like if they just do like almost like an isometric Dark Souls type game, but with ARPG style looting, that seems like the recipe.
Yeah, I mean, I think even just having a different version of Greater Rifts, right, making it where because PoE doesn't even have even a storyline, right? So you make an RPG and it's loot and
It has a pretty long storyline.
Yeah, but no, it's like that's not like if you had to say, is Diablo storyline better or Path to Exile? Like, I
Oh,
remember,
definitely
like,
Path of Exile.
oh, like, what? Path
Well, compared to D3, I don't know about D1 and D2, but compared to D3, yeah, Path of Exile story is way better.
I find the storyline of Diablo way cooler. It's like you're fighting demons from the underworld, and angels are involved. Like, I don't know, that whole dynamic.
If you enjoyed the story of Diablo 3 more than Path of Exile, I think you're in the minority.
Really?
I really like the story for Diablo. I don't know. I never really got grabbed and pulled into the story with Path of Exile, and I'm not sure why. Like I did with Diablo 3. Like I
Really?
couldn't tell you anything really about the story from Path of Exile. For me, Path of Exile, running through the story was literally always that chore that I had to push through to get to like map content. I
Yep.
never had any kind of like investment into the story or anything. Like as
Well,
compared to Diablo 3.
Act 10 is only like half the storyline, right? The rest of the storyline is in maps. So I guess it depends on how much attention you're paying. But yeah, I'm surprised to hear you guys say that because the Diablo 3 storyline to me just felt like 14-year-old fan fiction.
And like the Diablo 3, well, you also gotta think a lot of people were around 14 when they played that. So it's like,
well, also there's like a cutscenes and stuff, and I think the cutscenes make it a lot easier to like grasp and stuff.
True, yeah. D3 had cinematics and it was a more in your face.
They do have good looking cinematics, yeah.
If it doesn't have cinematics, I basically don't know what Underworld's going on. Like that's that's about all there is to that. Like if it's reading, then I don't know anything. If it's audio and they do it well, I know a little bit. If it's like actual solid cutscene, then I'm invested. I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do this.
But it's like back to the point, right, where people that play ARPGs don't really give a shit about the story most of the time, anyways. So
well,
they want the loot.
I think going back to Moreland's point is like if you want to like increase the genre, right? Then you pick one other thing that you want to be good at, right? Whether that be cutscenes or whether that be something else. So, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. It could be storylines. It could be like really cool, impactful skills. Like that's what BDO did, right? They basically took the MMO genre and just gave it really cool skills, and that carries the game extremely hard.
So there's another thing. There's like an ephemeral quality about this game that it's like hard to put it into words exactly, but I think this is also part of the reason why I got tired of PoE after a while because it's kind of missing this. So there's a feature in Diablo Resurrected where you can turn it back to the legacy graphics.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these games, when I go back, some of my favorite games when I go back and play them, like games from the 90s or even the early 2000s, they look so bad that I can't go back and play them. Like some of my all-time favorites, I cannot play anymore because they look so bad. This game, when I turn the legacy graphics on, it looks fucking amazing, dude. Like, and I don't even have nostalgic for. I don't know if it's like residual nostalgia from similar games that I played that this kind of looks like. But there's some ethereal quality to the look and feel of this 2001 game. The shitty little lightning particles that I'm shooting out. It's extremely satisfying. And I don't know even how to describe it or why that is. In some ways, the legacy graphics are almost better than the remastered ones.
Yeah.
And I can't figure out why I feel that way about the game. I'm kind of surprised by it.
It's attention to detail. It's extreme attention to detail. It's not big things. Like one thing that you would notice is like if you turn it on and off is the lighting is like the way they do lighting around corners and stuff in the original version is like 10 times better. It's way more immersive. Like you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know if there's a light there or not a light there. Like they really give you a really strong sense of almost like terror. I think that's the only way to really describe it, is like a reinforcing that terror feeling that is in the game. But in the new version, they don't have that. You can see the lights anywhere. Like it's very well illuminated. So there's like a little nuance like that where they paid a lot of attention to.
I don't know. I'm running around comparing the two. I don't feel like it's the difference in lighting. It's something about there's just certain types of art styles that like grab me and certain types that don't, and it definitely feels like a stylism thing. It doesn't necessarily feel like lighting or detail. It's literally the remastered style of the game just doesn't grip me the way the legacy version does, and I don't know what it is, dude. It's some like indescribable vibe. Maybe it's just like, maybe it is some sort of like tangential or like adjacent nostalgia that I have remembering other games that look like this.
Maybe.
But it's
Now just like
it's very
imagine
weird to think of, like, because you can see the same thing with modern games too. Like there are some modern games with like hyper realistic or like quote unquote like amazing graphics that don't immerse me at all compared to like old games that still look like shit. um, and I feel like that is a really underrated part of what makes like not just what makes like any RPG good. Like I feel like that's part of the reason that New World is so successful, is like content wise the game is really kind of not great, but there's something about just being in the world and chopping trees and just doing the most basic thing that feels and looks right,
Yeah.
compared to another MMO that might be better designed in terms of content, but just doesn't have that immersive layer to it for whatever reason.
I
I
think
feel
it's
like it's
just like
just stylism.
simplicity, right? Like
You think that's what it is?
I think it's just an aspect of simplicity, like there's like let's say you're chopping trees in New World, right? It's not like they revolutionized and did some crazy off the wall sound effect. They just have sound effects that literally sounds like you're chopping a tree, or like you're mining ore and you hear like the echo from like the mountain behind you and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I don't think I don't think more complex is necessarily better, which is what you see in a lot of these games where they're like really over trying to be like overly complex when they don't really have to be.
I do think it comes down. I still feel like it comes down to the detail of it, right? Like the reason why New World feels like that is because there's some artist and he's like, I have a vision for what I want the game to look like and feel like, and the atmosphere to kind of all tie together. And he goes out and executes what that kind of vision for the game is. And when you're remodeling a game, you don't have your vision is to copy the some unknown vision of the previous game. And so like one example of this is like there's like a lot of the bosses will have like a different shading color. And it's just it's just a minor boss. He has like some custom name, but he'll have like a different shade of color. It's just him, only him. He looks like all their mobs, other than he's like a darker shade of purple. And it just puts him out. And it's like that's like that little small nuance that artist paid attention. Like, hey, I want to make him look a little different. We don't have the resources to do anything else, but we're just making him a little different color. Or we're going to make it where that little thing is hidden on this screen. We're going to turn off that light and leave that light on in this particular location when the person is standing there. Like we don't want the lightning to be too bright because that would take away the terror of the scene or whatever. And he had some vision for that. And I feel like that's probably the main difference there, because I did notice a difference, like you said, and I attribute it to the lighting personally is why I attribute it to, because I think that was the biggest thing that changed. But like you said, there may be some other quality, because there are games like that that age really, really well. Like Minecraft will always look okay, even in 500 years from now. It'll still look okay because it has a stylized graphic that will age extremely well.
Well,
I
I
think
don't
for
know.
these
I have
old
trouble
games,
looking at Minecraft.
these old games I feel like have just really, like what you said, attention to detail, but in the sense of feedback in a way. Like as you said in New World, when you chop up wood or mine ore, like the audio feedback makes it so satisfying. And I feel like in a lot of those cases, it's about that, like the visual feedback that you get from pressing the button. What does it do? Does it change your screen in a way, or do you hear something specific? Like when I hear like WoW Vanilla, I don't know, sound effects, I could probably tell you exactly which one is which, just because it's so distinct.
WoW Vanilla is such a good example, actually, because like take I played Classic WoW and Final Fantasy 14 pretty much at the same time. Like right as I stopped playing TBC Classic, I started playing Final Fantasy 14, And there's some aspects of Final Fantasy 14 that I feel like are immersive, but when it comes to the combat, I feel like the combat in WoW feels straight up better, even though the game's 10 years older. And like just like a basic attack and the impact and the sound of a basic attack in World of Warcraft compared to a basic attack in Final Fantasy 14, they feel completely different, even though content-wise they're exactly the same action, right?
Like when a yellow big crit just jumps into your face after you, I don't know, click Storm Strike or something, like that just feels good.
Even just a level 1 character, even like a level 1 character doing a heroic strike against you know, a fucking snake versus my level 1 in Final Fantasy 14 using his heroic strike equivalent ability against a monster, it just doesn't feel nearly as good.
Yeah, I guess like for me, my World of Warcraft would be like arcane magic. Like I know exactly like that charging sound and it going off. Like that's just I haven't played it in 10 years probably, WoW Classic or used Arcane, but I know exactly what it sounds like. I know exactly how like the little channel bar looks when it goes across your screen. Like it's just like very, very nostalgic. Same
you mean
with like
Arcane Missiles, right?
Yeah, maybe that's what it's called. I don't know the name of it, but yeah, that's the one. But like the sound and the visuals for that, the way it like tracks off to the side and back into your target and everything, like that attention to detail just someone was like, that feels good. I like how that feels, and they decide that's the one we need to go with. And I feel like it feels, I guess maybe the difference is that there's maybe a lot of people today who are just going for a paycheck, and you know, because they're just going for a paycheck, they don't care if it feels better or it doesn't feel better. They're just looking to get a check mark on the boss's checklist.
Yeah, that's what this remaster feels like. It feels like there is an artistic direction. There's like a set of things that someone learned from like an art class in a game design school that they were told, like, here are the techniques you should use to make a game look better, or something, rather than like something they actually figured out or felt or had a vision for in their own way. That's really what the difference, because like, I don't know, man. I kind of prefer, like, I'm running around with the old legacy graphics on. There should be no reason why I want to do this compared to the remastered version, but I kind of like keeping it on the old version, even though I never played the old version. I don't even have any nostalgia for it. But it's weird though, because not all remasters are like that. Like I would say, if you look at the Souls games, Dark Souls remastered, you know, it wasn't a great remaster, but it clearly looks better than the original. Like it's mostly just they just tightened up the textures and stuff, but they stayed true enough to the original, I guess, that it looks better. But the biggest one is if you look at Demon Souls remastered, they like the visual upgrade that they have to Demon Souls remastered compared to the original is like astounding, and they kept a lot of the original kind of like emotion, I guess, from a lot of the like bosses and stuff. Even if they didn't keep the model, like even if they made changes to the model, they found ways to keep the initial like feeling. And there's a couple mobs where I think they failed, like with the fat I forget his name, but like the fat dude who you encounter a few times. I feel like he looks worse in the remaster, but overall the environments and the bosses and stuff in Demon Souls remastered, it's like a bunch of artists who get Demon Souls were remastering it. And I feel like with this game, the artists who are remastering it, I don't know, they missed something.
Like one thing I could think it might be is that some games, the visuals are like the attaching feature. Like if you had to rework like New World in 20 years from now, right, and remastered New World, I would bet money they would mess it up, like 100% chance, because there's some guy right now who has like a vision for that, and you wouldn't copy it well, right? You would upgrade the graphics but not copy the vision, and yeah, maybe, I think some games have that, and some games they're good not because the vision of the graphics is very good, but the vision of the gameplay is really good. Like Dark Souls, the gameplay is bar none. There is no game that has better like balance between combat, like weapons, diversity. Like they're the best. There's nothing that's better than them. They're the masters of that trade. And so you're not playing that game necessarily for the visuals. So I might argue, I haven't played a whole lot of Dark Souls, but I might argue that it's not the visuals that are even attaching in the first place. So if the visuals are upgraded in any way, it's just an added bonus because the visuals weren't what you attracted you to the game in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know. I've definitely played games where I still enjoy the combat or the content, but I feel like the visual rework makes it worse. I mean, this has happened a lot of times with some of the older MMOs like Ultima and EverQuest, where they redo the client or they add new models, and they're always worse. Like even if 10 years have passed and they have way better technology, the game always looks and feels worse than it did 10 years prior, and that's just fascinating to me.
Didn't the same thing happen to Warcraft 3 as well? I didn't play the new one.
Yeah, Warcraft 3 remastered looked okay. I don't think if given a choice between looking at the old graphics and looking at the new ones, I think most people would choose the new ones. The problem with Warcraft 3, well, there was a lot of problems with Warcraft 3, but I don't necessarily think the visuals failed. I think they weren't astounding, but I think the failure of Warcraft 3 Reforged had to do with a lot more than just lackluster visuals.
Kerr? Kerr? I think he's gone.
Is Kerr gone?
Well, now I'm in black and white because I had Nico Tulo in black and white, but the camera's rearranged.
I don't know. Do you guys have an example of like a remaster that you thought like really brought the game back and made you want to actually play it again?
What are some remasters they've done recently that were popular?
There's been a fuckload, right?
Yeah. Age of Empires remaster. I wanted to kind of go back and play that a little bit.
Oh, I played that a little bit actually. There was
Yeah.
like a stress test.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was the Age of Empires 4 actually. Never mind. That wasn't the same thing.
I played Age of Empires 2 remastered. I thought was pretty solid. I don't know, it didn't seem any different to me. It just seemed like the same game with upgraded textures maybe. I think just upgraded textures was the main thing. So like I feel like the lighting and everything was the exact same. I'm trying to think what other games got remastered that I would have thought of.
BDO remastered, another example of remaster that I never would use.
No, it's terrible. I'm surprised how many people were like really, really surprised. Welcome back, Kerr.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the lesson here is that when remastering a game, you should focus more on just like, increasing the fidelity of the textures and things like that, rather than trying to actually implement a modern art style onto the game. Because I do feel like stylistically is where this remaster or where Resurrected version of Diablo definitely failed. Like, there's no other way to put it.
I guess you have to determine what was the original thing that attracted players to it and identify what that was, right? Was it the gameplay? Was that the visuals? Was it the stylized visuals? Or was it like the narrative or the cutscenes? And then once you identify what was the thing that attracted players, then that's what you focus on, making sure that it's picture perfect to the pixel, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's a failure to understand the original.
Yeah. Because it was probably gameplay, cutscenes, and the stylized graphics was like the combo. And they got.
I mean, I would say.
Go ahead.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Finish. My bad.
But yeah, I think that was like the main thing that, for me, looking at Diablo 3 was the main thing, and I feel like they focused on 2 and they didn't get the third one.
I think most of the time with these remasters, isn't it more so like trying to bring the graphics more, make it more appealing to people that weren't playing it at the time, or just like a new audience, right? Because like
Maybe.
people that are living on nostalgia are probably going to play it regardless if they feel the game had a big impact in their life. But I feel like most of these like remastered art styles and like graphics are more to try to like pull in like a younger audience that wasn't exactly around when the game was first released / popping.
That I can see that for
Can't believe
sure,
I just said
because if they went with like a true to stylized graphics for Diablo 3 or Diablo 2 Resurrected, I think they would have lost a ton of players, because a lot of people looked at the graphics and be like, oh, those are old graphics, I'm not going to play that. But if you give them that nice...
See, that's where I disagree, though. I think if they just took this these textures that I'm looking at right now and just made them more crisp and updated them rather than actually adding like new models and new environments to the game, I think it would look way fucking better. I think they needed to they didn't like stay true enough to the original style.
People, I don't know. People are so visual nowadays, bro. Like people will look at something and decide within a couple seconds if they're ever even going to give it any thought, right? Like a lot of people when they saw Elion, they were like, "Oh, this looks," they were like, "Oh, this looks way too similar to like Terra and shit like that. I'm not even gonna bother like looking into it." And I mean, I'm kind of guilty in the same way where it's like I see something and if it doesn't visually pull me in or at least look like it's in, within bounds, I don't really look too much for it.
Yeah, I mean, Elion, I feel like is another great example of a game where 10 years elapsed and they didn't make anything. Like, I would say that's another game that just completely stylistically fails, right? There's just nothing about that game that grips you or pulls you in, even though it's like, I don't know.
I do think there's two different player bases there, though. Like, there's definitely a traditional player base, like you, and you can value old graphics and like really appreciate those. And I think the younger audience will just look at that and be like, this immediately turned off. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just a matter of what demographic you're trying to appeal to. And I can't speak to what that is. I do think reworks, I would prefer them to stick to the original feeling of the game and like honor that. But I can understand if a game's trying to target a bigger audience, maybe they change that up a little bit with some lighting or shadows or something.
I don't think that the demographic for D2 Resurrected was young people, though. And I also, I think there's a lot of examples of games that kind of look like shit that, hold on, I'm about to die, that absolutely like crushed it in terms of sales very recently. Like, I don't know, even like Valheim, for example. That game is pure style. Like if you actually like zoom in and look closely at shit in Valheim, the textures are very wacky. It looks like a game that easily could be 10 or 20 years old. Maybe not 20, but like it doesn't look like a game that just came out. But there's something about the style and the atmosphere of that game that works extremely well and immerses you nonetheless.
And I mean, I think that's kind of different though, because that comes with like that like indie style, right? Where like you expect a certain appeal or like a look with those games, whether it's Valheim, whether it's like Among Us, whether it was like Don't Starve, like games like that, where it's like they're made by really small studios / groups of people, but the gameplay itself is what carries the game. But when you think of like Diablo, like I think it's kind of different, right? They're like different leagues in terms of like personal expectations. Maybe, but that's my thought. My bad, Nico. Go ahead.
All good, dude. I just wanted to say, like, isn't Blizzard's demographic nowadays just people with a wallet anyways? Like, are they really trying to, create something they would want to play?
Well, I think their demographic on this is probably Diablo 4. I think whoever they want to be playing Diablo 4, they want to make sure that those people will enjoy Diablo 2. So I don't know what that would be, but I think that's probably their main interest there. And then
I thought they just outsourced this like they did with Warcraft 3 and StarCraft Remastered. I don't think they do any of these in-house, do they?
This is Vicarious Visions, which is part of Blizzard. So it's always been part of Activision, but it used to be part of Destiny. Then they did like their own set of reworks, like Pro Skater rework, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Crash Bandicoot, and something else. I think we did something else. And Spyro, I think. So they've done like a lot of these reworks in the past, and I think that's why they've done a pretty good job with this one so far. Like, I think comparing this one to the Warcraft, this is way more successful.
Oh yeah, this is definitely much more successful than the Warcraft remaster, but there's still something just stylistically that is off here.
I will say it is smart for them to have left in the option to play with the old graphics.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like that like if
The
they're
fact that you can
going
press
to
a button
change
and
it,
go back and forth is
exactly,
fascinating.
dude. Like I would like it if more companies would do that.
That's what they did for
these, like,
the
remasters.
what was it, the original Halo? I think that's what they did that with. People love that. I think what they're probably
What's
going to do after
next?
this is what they have Diablo Immortal. So they'll probably do Diablo. Probably do this year is Diablo Resurrected. Next year is Diablo Immortal on mobile, and then after that will be Diablo 4, maybe.
Gross.
I can't wait for Diablo Immortal.
I do think it's going to be actually like from what I've heard, it's like pretty okay.
I need a new mobile game.
Yeah, what have you been playing so far?
Nothing really, dude. I was thinking about reinstalling Clash Royale the other night. That's how bored I was.
Clash Royale is was the peak for mobile games for
Holy
me.
fuck, dude. That was so good.
It
Kind of
was
got
the
worse over
peak.
time, but yeah, dude. That game. Oh, so good.
Another big news this week was they had made some Halo clone. There was some Halo clone that got $100 million in funding. I don't remember what the game's even called. I want to say it's Splitgate, maybe, but I don't know if that's the correct name.
It's already out now.
Yeah, Splitgate's been out for a bit.
Yeah, but that company that made that got $100 million in funding. So
Good for them.
Yep. So
To make a new one.
Yeah, their goal is to make basically take classic games and then reimagine them in modern genre. So what they did is they took Halo original combat and then just made it modern to what they want to do. And so they're basically competing with Halo, Halo 5 with a 20-man team because they just understand the audience, right? And so they're basically trying to do that again for other genres that are like underutilized currently. So maybe like RTS would be a good example. There has been like a solid RTS in a long time.
Dude, is it possible for RTSs to make a comeback?
I think so. I think you could make the classic RTS because this is. I think people want to play them. I mean, StarCraft 2 is still like crazy popular. I don't know how you'd make one that wasn't so competitive though. They're always so
crazy popular.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about crazy popular.
They had the best year for StarCraft 2 from the Pro League after they closed the pro scene. So it's doing okay at the very least.
Did any of you try out the new Age of Empires?
4?
Yeah.
I don't think it harkens back to the original very well.
I'm more of like a Total War fan personally. So well, I've been playing a lot of Warcraft or Warhammer 2 because 3 was supposed to be coming out this year, but they pushed it back.
You played 4, didn't you? That's what you said?
Yeah, but like I was watching there was like a big Age of Empires 2 tournament, and they used that to like market the new one, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And the general consensus was that the new one is, scuffed and the old one is way better, and no one wants to see this shit kind of vibe, so.
Yeah, I can kind of tell it from the trailer. Like, it looked like you took an indie team and you said, make this in modern, and they have no idea what they're doing because they had like line of sight for trees and stuff, which is like super weird. And then like even like the models and stuff look really strange to me personally. It's kind of sad. I think that may be a good example of like how they could like a game that tried copying the original and did a extremely bad job of it, right? Because I mean, like Age of Empires 4 is literally just Age of Empires 2 with modern graphics. Like that's basically what it is. They tried copying it, adding like 1 or 2 twists, and that's basically it.
A lot of people I talked to actually said it was closer to the third one in terms of mechanics. So? But I have no idea. Like I'm not an RTS player, so I don't know.
I haven't played it either, so I'm just talking from what I've seen visually.
Man, RTSs came and went so hard. Like that was all I played as a kid for the longest time was RTSs. And I don't even remember the last time I really even touched one, other than like, nostalgically installing Warcraft 2 and fucking around for a couple hours, maybe. Like, I don't think I've touched a single other RTS in 5, maybe 10 years.
Yeah, I think that if that's their goal, right, the company made Splitgate, is to do that. They're already adding a Forge mode to their game, just like Halo had. I mean, I think they're just in a really good position to make an RTS. But regardless of what they plan on doing, I think it's really exciting to see a new, indie company become more or less a AAA company, just through like hard work and knowing how to make good games. I think that's it as far as notes. Oh, what do you think of the controls of Diablo 2?
I hate them. There's oh god, I died. There's a lot of things about Diablo 2 that are fucking awful. So there's the controls are terrible. You have to a hotkey. You have left click and right click. You can't rebind them. You have to hotkey different things to your right click, and then your left click is always move and basic attack. So um, if you have like 5 different abilities, you have to put them on hotkeys and press the hotkey to assign it to your right click and then right click to use it instead of the hotkey just using the skill directly. It's so awful. I like with some of these remakes, there's some of the stuff where it's like, okay, I get you're trying to stay true to the original, but when it comes to just like key inputs and like the interface and quality of life, like I think we can all say goodbye. This is clearly a worse way of doing it. There's also a stamina system that drives me fucking crazy. You run out of stamina if you sprint in this game for 10 seconds. And the way to solve that is to drink a stamina potion. And these stamina potions are like a 30-second duration or something, and they stack. So what you do is you go to town every 5 minutes, you buy 10 stamina potions, you chug them all at once, and then next time you go to town, you buy 10 more, and then you chug those. And it's so dumb and tedious, and they could have easily just removed it from the game, and everything would have been fine.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I guess it makes sense, right? There's some things that are better, people learn from over time. Because I guess that was probably like one of the first games that ever did like actual sprinting and stuff, right? Like back then, there weren't many games that were doing that kind of stuff. Like Halo had sprinting in it, and like for the first time, people were like, "You can sprint in an FPS? Like that's insane!" You know, like now that's just common knowledge. Except for New World, doesn't have sprinting in it. Although to be fair,
it shouldn't.
Probably be bad. It did.
I mean, it does. It does.
It's just always on. Yeah, you just have infinite sprinting, which I guess that's okay because I don't have to hold down my shift key all the time. It does feel a little strange though. What else we have? As far as BDO, there was no patch this week. Literally no patch. They did do maintenance, but there was actually no patch, which I think is kind of
They had a holiday. It's kind of like apparently it's one of the most important holidays in Korea, and it's like a 3-day long holiday where you have family come in and you go and you go visit the graves of people in your family that have died and things like that.
Okay.
Apparently it lasts for like 3 days. So they didn't do a patch on live server this week. And they didn't do a global lab patch last week. So they did the global lab patch today. So they pushed it back.
Huh, interesting. So for the global lab, they did 2 things, right? They did 2 major things at least. They did the rework for Archer and the rework for Sork. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Yeah. They did the rework for Archer and Sork. And they're continuing their tweaks of the first 3 reworks. So Warrior, Ranger, and Striker are still doing their tweaks as well, yeah.
I can't help but think that they're just not doing a whole lot. Like these reworks don't like it's nice and all, but it seems like to stop all their game development is a little bit much. You know?
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing for me is that the original date with the calendar was that the Clash reworks were supposed to be done on October 13th and all on Global Labs and ready to go. Well, so back in August, they were like, okay, well, we're gonna push all content back and we're just gonna work on the Clash reworks. Well, then now we are 2.5 weeks or something like that away from October 13th. and we only have gotten 5 out of 17, even with them delaying, quote, quote, delaying all other content. So that's kind of a weird one. Like at this point, I really would have rather they just come out with all of that other content that they had in between. But
I just can't shake the feeling that they've removed a lot of people from the Black Desert team in order to work on Crimson Desert or another project or something, because I don't understand how they could have, like, unless they are extremely incompetent, there's no way they could have realistically planned to do all of the content, and now they've literally have cut half the content from their plan, and they're still behind on schedule, even on the reworks. Like, they're just doing reworks and some, like, quality of life. So, like, I just don't see how it's either one or two. Either they've lost a ton of people, or they're so incompetent at their job that it is out, like, mind blowing. And I would like to believe they just lost a lot of people on their team, because because if they're that bad at their job, there's no hope for BDO in the future.
I would also love to believe that they'd move people from BDO to other projects, but as far as I know, that is not what has happened, or at least I've been told that is not what has happened.
Yeah, I mean, they're still doing really good, really good and nice, like, quality of life things. But there definitely is some kind of a weird, like, it feels like that, like, stereotypical Korean hierarchy that you hear in a lot of games, where it's like the developers are doing their work, but somebody in higher up or on marketing, someone that's making the decisions and on, like, and giving out these dates, are giving impossible dates that the devs know they can't hit, but the devs are probably not, like, saying anything back, just because of, like, the whole respect hierarchy, I guess, right? It would seem, because I mean, you could look at the list of dates they gave and you could be like, there's no way you thought you were going to hit this, right?
Yeah, but some of the things are, like, kind of crazy, because we already saw the new boat gear in the game over a year ago in Global Labs. And then they've already shown us a video of the new tier 11 horse. And then we have the mansion in game as a preview, and then they just didn't add the functionality to it. Like, it's all there. They added to Global Lab. It's all in Global Lab. Like, I just, the only thing I can think of at this point is it's incompetence. They lost a lot of people on the team, or they are fucking shitting us a brick about New World and holding off all content until New World is launched. Like, those are the options. Like, I don't know.
I love how out of the loop I am, and nothing has changed in like 3 years. Like the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, because it's on one end, it's like they're doing so much crazy good quality of life fixes, some shit that been waiting for forever, and that's nice.
Yeah.
I just my biggest gripe with the game is just hopefully they figure out how to tame their expectation, or like the dev / marketing team kind of gets a better like load of communication between the two, because I don't know, I don't see how they give the dates, but then they like overshot them so hard. But yeah.
Yeah,
I don't.
Communication, communication. A little communication will go a long way. The whole reason we wanted the roadmap in the first place is so that we could tame our expectations properly, and then they give us the roadmap, and then they don't learn their lesson that we need to have our expectations set correctly, and so then they never update us on the roadmap, which is just as bad as giving us the roadmap or not giving us the roadmap originally. So, by caramba. I don't have anything else for BDO because BDO didn't do anything else. We talked about Lost Ark, New World, and Diablo 2 Resurrected. That's it for my notes. What else do we have to talk about? What do you guys want to talk about?
We don't really have to get into it, but I just wanted to briefly mention I hopped back on Bless Unleashed this week to try the new level 35 dungeon, and it is incredibly fucking good, dude. Like, the dungeons in that game were already shockingly good, especially with how low of expectations we all went into it with. And the new dungeon that they just added is that game is just absolutely showing New World what could be done with action combat, 5-man dungeons, and it's insane how they're just in a completely different league. I really hope that the Amazon like will look at that game at some point and see what to do, because they're so fucking fun and challenging and interesting and like punishing in just the right amounts. And it was a really good like experience to run through it, even with people I didn't even know, and like figure it out and try to execute everything correctly.
Really? Was it just like the mechanics slash like the atmosphere, or what was it that
Yeah,
made
it's
those
it's a
dungeons?
little bit of both. The atmosphere is great. Like it's you're in this like demonic temple, and you're fighting demons who are like causing part of the arena to like sink into fire, and like there's you've got one of the demons goes up in the air and breathes fire on you, and you have to dodge like enough of the fire to stay alive. But if you dodge too much, then you burn the level, and you have like less space to move around. So there's
Ah.
just like a lot of really cool stuff like that. You have to actually think about, rather than just health sponging the boss like you do in New World. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. I had a lot of fun with it, so might still be playing that game casually from time to time and checking it out when it gets updated. I really wish that they just hadn't made that game under the Bless franchise, dude. I think it would have really blown people away with how good of a job they did with certain aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. I do think that, like, given some time, a factor of time, and like them doing what they've been doing, like in 1 year they fixed the entire combat of the game, and they have like really good dungeons, and they fixed the progression. Like, there's no game that's ever done that much in a year, and New World is trying their best. And I guess it's true. Like, what's scary is I don't think they're a big studio either. I think they're like a really small studio. Like,
yeah, well, they were a studio that was created under NeoWiz just to make Bless Unleashed. So I don't know how many people they have, but I don't think it's a huge studio, because they basically just made a separate branch and gave it a name, and that's how they came up with this. But yeah, dude, it's pretty good. And like just the patches in general that they've been adding on that game are very, very attentive. It's like exactly the problems, like the top 5 things that annoy you about the game every week, 4 out of 5 of those are getting fixed every single week consistently. And then like the next 5 things that annoy you after that, 4 out of 5 of those are getting fixed every single week. They're just so fucking attentive. Yeah, it's still like continues to be a really good side game.
Makes me a little, you talking about makes me a little like that game, because I put, here, let me pull it up on Steam right now. I think I put like 500 hours in that game. Like I put a crap load of time into that game.
I was meaning to ask you guys, like, how you guys still felt about Bless Unleashed after all this time. So, I mean, it's good to kind of see that it wasn't just a whole lot of, like, oh, new toy, shiny new thing, and I'm just looking at it with the rose tinted glasses, all right? I mean, I definitely think that, like, if they keep doing it the way they're doing it, that they definitely could start to kind of shore up some of that negative stigmatism that goes along with the Blessed name, but it's gonna take a lot. It's
Maybe
gonna take a whole lot.
that's what I play when New World kind of goes a little dry. Is I'll fire up a little Bless Unleashed in the afternoons.
It's gonna take a whole lot to get past the whole Bless kick W anytime you mention Bless.
Yeah.
Hey, someone's got to be got to take the bullet. All right.
I mean, but it sounds like they're at least doing decently well, right? I mean, they got Moreland to praise it, right?
Yeah,
that's hard.
I mean, I haven't heard Moreland praise an MMO very often in very long, so
that's true.
True.
I I put 405 hours in. That's what I put in.
Jesus Christ.
That's actually wild.
And that was in like what, 3 weeks, 2 weeks? No, it was about a month, right?
It was about a month, yeah, close to a month.
God, dude.
Basically put in 100 hours a week.
100 hours a week.
100 hours.
Bro, I'm about to ascend when New World comes out. I'm not gonna sleep. I have a sleep cycle where I'm going to do 8 hours one day. The next hour is 4 hours. I'm just going to 8 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, 4 hours, back to back.
It's like that's 8 hours of game and then 4 hours of sleep or something, or
yep, that's basically what it'll be.
Oh my
so
God.
I want to have maximum uptime. I'm going to do that probably for like the first week, and then I'll become a regular human again. because the streamer category is gonna be so flooded for the first week. It doesn't matter when I stream. I'm not gonna have anybody watching, right? Like, it's just gonna be my normal crew, no matter what time it is. So the first week I'm just gonna go ham. But after that, then I'll become a regular human being again. I'll have sleep patterns and eat food occasionally. Might go outside. Depends if the grass needs mowed in the front yard.
Yeah, there's no chance I go off. I already put like my gym membership on hold for 3 weeks and everything, dude. I'm just gonna absolutely neat this fucking game.
But that's the best part, being a degenerate sometimes, you know? That's the best part.
You're in between school right now, Nico, right?
Yeah, mine starts in like 3 weeks.
Ah, plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Yeah, plenty.
I'm currently trying to figure out like what the best meta is in New World. Like, I'm on the fence because crafting the best gear, mathematically, it takes like hundreds of hours to get something with like all the stats you want. Like hundreds, if not 1,000 hours. It's like something absolutely ridiculous. So I don't know if I want to craft gear for the perks. Like, that was my original vision, was just craft gear for the best perks. But knowing the math and not knowing if they're going to, like, 3 months from now do a Destiny 2 and then update all the gear score again. I don't know if I'm not sure if I can invest that time not knowing if they're going to just invalidate all my gear score progress.
That's the big question, dude, is when the new region comes out, do they just slap like a level 65 and a 70 dungeon, increase the level cap, and make everyone reset? Like, do they just do that in 6 months? Because I kind of feel like that's the style of game they're starting to turn it into.
Yeah, if they do that, then I'm not going to take the game very seriously. Because it's just going to be...
Yeah.
I'll just do the content, and when I'm done with the content, then I'm done with the game. Because...
Or do they literally just drop a whole nother, like, higher level of faction gear that kind of invalidates min-max level 60 gear, right? Like a level 65.
Oh, for sure.
Gear.
Yeah, as soon as they raise the cap, there's going to be a 65 faction set that just destroys everything you worked for months.
It'll be exactly 600 gear score, best in slot, everything.
How will they monetize that, though? That's what I don't really understand.
I think they're going to do exactly Destiny 2. They do a season pass. They do a really terrible cash shop that everybody thinks is ugly. And then they'll have one big buy update a year. They'll be like $40-$60.
XP boost to get you caught up for the new expansion.
Well, what they do is...
Dude, there's no way they don't eventually sell Azoth, dude. There's no way they don't sell Azoth eventually.
I don't think they will.
No, they won't sell Azoth. They'll just sell all the functions that Azoth has independently. Like, they'll sell fast travel coupons.
Like, you can, buy a coupon to fast travel X amount of time.
Exactly.
What they do in Destiny is...
Azoth cap.
What they'll do is, in Destiny, you do an activity and you get bonuses. So, like, they'll do... You'll get 50% bonus Azoth from Outpost Rush. That'll be what it is. Because Outpost Rush, I think, is like 300 Azoth or 200 Azoth or something. So I think that would be like their play. And for EXP, what they do in Destiny is they tie it in with your season pass. And so as you level up the season pass, you'll hit like 10% bonus EXP, 20% bonus EXP, 25% bonus EXP from the season pass. And if you don't have the season pass, then you can still level up. It just takes you a little longer. Which I don't think is too bad, assuming that it's, because once you're level 60, everybody's on equal footing anyway. It's just not the worst thing in the world.
I'll put up with a lot of abuse if they actually give me things to fight over and reasons to log in every day besides sieging twice a week.
I mean, hey, look, we all played BDO for way longer than we should have.
Yeah, this is very true.
Dude, I'm the only person that's still perpetually stuck in BDO, dude.
Listen, I'm not done with BDO.
When did you start, Kerr? When was your first day in BDO? You remember?
So I first started, I did the little 2-week thing back really early, like March, April. But then I really started playing it hard around June of 2016.
Okay, so you've been there from the start pretty much.
So yeah, I've been there since Uno, before the server merge.
Long time. Uno
days.
Damn.
March 31st is my start date. That's when they send me birthday cakes.
Is BDO the longest MMO that all of you guys have played?
It's the one I've played the
Second.
most. I
Second longest for me.
guess
WoW's the longest for me.
like I guess
What was your longest, Kerr?
I played this like Korean MMO called Mabinogi for like 7 years, from the time I was in like fifth, sixth grade, all the way up until, you know, it was a long time. It was like a very kind of very outdated looking graphic called Mabinogi.
I
I
guess
played that game so many hours.
my first MMO. I don't know what it'd be. I guess my first serious MMO would be like RuneScape, maybe, because it's so accessible. But BDO is definitely the one I've played the longest. I have like 25 or 30,000 hours in BDO now. Like at least logged into the
Jesus
game.
Christ.
That's not my active playtime, obviously.
I don't
right?
even have
But-
10, man. I don't even have 10.
I never got crazy like addicted to RuneScape, because like I had when I started playing RuneScape back in like 4th grade, I would go over to my friend Brandon's house, right? Or at least I thought he was my friend. And because I didn't have a computer, so I'd play at his house. And at the end of the fucking weekend, bro, he would drop transfer my items and stuff that I got over the weekend to his account. And like this went on, I swear, for like half a year, and I never noticed it until I finally realized, like, bro, what the fuck? Like, I haven't gotten anywhere. And he has all this
gamer
shit.
move. Absolute gamer move.
And it's like every time I was over his house, yeah, man, you want to play? You can use my computer, bro. You can just log in and play. And he just like drop transfer my shit at Lumbridge to his account.
Wow, he put you to work, dude.
I was basically a gold farmer for him, dude.
I got some mouse program where you could actually auto click and it would track your clicking and record it. And I made a bot just from that would do it and drop it on the ground. And I got like 4 or 5 accounts banned before I stopped doing that. I was trying to make it work and it just get banned after like one day, and I'd be like, all right, well, I must have just done it in a very obvious location. They saw me, so I'll go over here in the cave now. They're just picking up on the program I was using and banning me, you know? Like,
dude, I did so much scripting and AFK macroing and UO for years and never got caught.
I was trying to do fletching arrows. That was one thing I was trying to do on my ult, because fletching, I figured out, was better money than picking up chicken feathers. So I started doing that.
Dude, I miss a whole lot of that, weirdly enough, in like MMOs from back in the day. Because like in Mabinogi, we had these things called like spider farms, where you'd have like spiders out in the wild and they would aggro onto you, but they wouldn't attack you. They would just follow you. So you would aggro like 20 spiders and pull them to this spot in between 2 trees where they get like stuck and they can't leash back to their original area. And spiders like passively drop cobwebs. So you would glitch like 20 spiders in between a tree, and you would constantly be able to like farm the cobwebs like AFK with a clicker, so you could level up your weaving and like make clothes and sell silk and shit. And I was like, damn, dude, like that's like the olden days where it was like, okay, everybody was like doing shady shit, honestly.
Oh yeah.
I feel like
Fucking
the
good old
core of
times.
that, I feel like, you know, on a principle, I think that shouldn't exist in a game. But then when I think about it, it's such a fun thing. I feel like developers should almost bake in cheat codes to the game, where you have like, you know, this super hard trap to find, and then you get one and you're like, oh, I have to keep it forever because it can trap 50 spiders in the same location. And then you're basically rewarding people for finding this like super nuanced thing, or like grinding out an archaeologist map type item, you know, where you can, it's almost like a cheat code for like one part of the game that you want to do.
Oh, that's kind of funny thinking about that. So video, so you know they added the little graves up there at Marie Cave where you hit the stones and the mobs continually spawn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had that disabled for like the last week and a half because people were using like Novas to AFK farm that. because you block on like Nova and the Shadow Simps come out and they like farm mobs.
The
So they
Sims.
they made it so that on the global lab patch today, they made it so that after like 20 seconds of not doing anything or blocking, they made it so that your summons won't do anything. They won't take any action. And I was like, bro, Nova's been out since last December. How did you guys like not know that?
Okay, but how much money were people actually making from that? Like 100K an hour? I mean,
it's like
it couldn't have been that
100
much.
mil an hour.
It's okay because they dropped
It's
like
100 mil an hour to AFK and
No, not to
clones
AFK.
They drop
kill
relics
people?
and Kaffers.
Yeah,
They drop.
you probably make like 20 mil from AFKing it.
Wow,
and it's not per by AFK because like you gotta reset the stone or the little hedges, like the gravestones and stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of weird that they're like, oh, and then they also made it so the same with like Tamer. If you block for 20 seconds, then your pet won't do anything. Same with Witch Wizard. If you're not doing anything for 20 seconds, then your pet will just like stand still, go inactive.
Well, yeah, people were using the Tamer pet to AFK farm Hex Sanctuary, but it was like
exactly
it was literally like nothing. It was like less than AFK fishing, so no one really cared.
They're like, bro, this has been a thing for years.
Well, the new thing will people will get an elephant and then use the elephant turret, and then the pet will still do things because they're technically activated.
Dude, I used to AFK run the relics with like Heilang back when I remember when Arcade Unchained came out. I was like, okay, well, I still want to make progress and money in BDO because I'm a degenerate. So I would like tab over, summon the scroll, and let Halo like the dog solo this relic scroll, and then tab back to Arcade, and I'd pop back over every now and then to like repop up a new one.
Did that work?
Yeah, it worked well, but not anymore. It wouldn't work anymore because the change they did this week. And obviously it wasn't like anything crazy, but it was just like something you could do AFK.
You gotta figure out a new way of making this happen. I'll have to brainstorm a little bit. My passive income has been ruined.
Isn't that what people do nowadays?
Well, the only thing better than grinding in BDO is letting your AFK grinding in BDO.
What do you guys think about them allowing people to get? So they're doing this season plus thing. We have already talked about it, and it comes out next week. Where after you graduate, you get the season plus pass, and you do like things on this pass to get collect these stones apparently get enough stones, and you'll be able to guarantee an upgrade to pin on the untradeable boss gear that you got during season. How do you do you guys think that's like a good thing for the game, or like just as your like outside like your player perspective?
Well, first I feel like they lied to us because they said we're not going to do any more season rewards, and so then literally like not even a month later they are already giving out another season reward that's like I guess it's arguably even better, right? A pin that's worth more than anything they've given out so far. So I guess I'm like, I mean, I just don't see the point in it, right? Like giving away more stuff for free is not going to make your game better. All you're doing is making it where people can play your game less often, and you're giving people more of an excuse to quit. Because once you have a gear item that you want, like once you have the level you want, the gear you want, you just quit BDO, right? The only fun in BDO is the progression, and when that's done, and you're done with the game. And they're just making that so short now, where you can get a Kaposha super quickly, or now pin boss gear very quickly. I don't think I just don't see the benefit to the game making the progression shorter. Like Bless Unleashed does not have like a really good, like a really complex in game, right? It's just doing the same dungeons over and over and over again, but you can still play the game basically forever because they don't invalidate that progression basically ever. And you can, there's always something to grind for. There's always another S tier to grind for. There's always another item to get. And so I just don't see any benefit for taking that away. Like, why are you supposed to go and get Cron Stones for Fallen God and click that, Like, I don't know. That doesn't sound fun.
I think it just depends on what the catch is, because there's always a catch. For example, back in July, they implemented this thing where it's like, oh, free pin accessory. Well, it's like, it's not exactly free because you still have to earn it by doing like 80 days of dailies plus it's like 10 bill worth of materials, so you get it for cheap. I think it's going to be a similar thing with this like quote quote free pin where it's not exactly free. There's going to be a silver sync and a certain amount of like time and effort you have to put in, be that doing a daily diligently for like 2-3 months or whatever, or doing all these other different things. But I don't know. I think it. I personally think it's a good thing because like a pin armor or a pin weapon isn't really the greatest thing anymore. It's kind of because like nowadays the big difference anyway is going to be Caphras or a pin Black Star or the leveling of the Fallen God. So like I personally think it's actually going to be a good thing for the game, more so because a new player gets in, they get their 2 Vala gear, and then it's like, okay, well, I have another stepping stone. I have this pass that's going to help me figure out different avenues of progressing my gear, and then at the end of it, I'm going to be able to earn a piece of pin boss gear, right? I think if they make the silver sync nice enough and it's not actually free, because they haven't technically said it's free, I think it's a good thing just for like easing the culture shock of being dropped out of seasons.
Well, the follow-up question to that would be, is the thing that they're allowing you to do to get this pin more fun than the previous way of getting a pin? And I don't know the answer to that because, we don't know what that is yet.
I think there's like, for me, there's 2 points to this like entire question. Unless you guys have more to say, Potion.
No, good. You're good. Go ahead.
And like the first part is, I feel like BDO adding all of these dailies to achieve something, or the journals and these kind of things, kind of goes the opposite direction of the game's niche is. Like I dislike dailies as a whole in
Very
every
true.
game.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
like in BDO, it's like such a chore, and it feels so much worse. Like if I was a new player doing journals and dailies all day, I would hate that so much.
Yep.
And the second thing for me is that like a lot of the progression in BDOs, like there's not really a lot of builds, or like obviously there's evasion DR build, but that's kind of the end of the story. So like getting more gear or like getting gear quicker or whatever isn't that interesting to me. So like for me, just a matter of like BDO kind of needs to have a full reset at some point. And I thought Crimson Desert would have been that before they made it a co-op game or whatever.
BDO Classic, baby. Let's go.
Something like that.
What's going to happen now is they're going to be like, we listened to player feedback and it's going to be an MMO after all. They're just going to go back and forth on it.
And the game will come out in 12 years.
I wonder what in the world they're going to do. It's so crazy how similar Pearl Abyss is to Blizzard with developing World of Warcraft. To Pearl Abyss is developing Black Desert. Like World of Warcraft is doing only quality life changes. They've pushed back all their due dates. They're way behind schedule. And then if you look at Black Desert, they pushed back all their due dates. They're way behind schedule. They're only doing quality of life. Like it's just very interesting to see how similar those are. And I mean, maybe Pearl Abyss is copying Blizzard, which I don't know how they're still doing that these days, but yeah. So maybe
I don't know. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think some of it comes where it's like not having a whole lot of competition in their own space, maybe, and a lot of disconnect between the people developing the game and the people that are in charge of like speaking to the public. I think that's a big part of it, because I mean they've been doing a whole lot of good stuff. But the biggest thing for them, because I mean, they're not struggling for players. I mean, they consistently at pretty much any time of the day have, well over 20K players playing at any given time on Steam, which is probably less than half of the player base. But I think they kind of are in a situation in terms of older players or people that have played before, similar to Bless, in a sense that they're gonna have to keep doing these quality of life and like game improvements to regain, I guess, that like trust of a group of people, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of overall, I'm in a happy spot with BDO. My biggest gripe is just the giving dates and not keeping their dates. Like if they can figure that out, then I think they're on a really good track.
I think they should just come out and say, we're going to release our next big expansion when New World releases theirs. We're going to release our next big expansion when Lost Ark comes out. and that would be more or less correct,
They
probably.
can't say that.
Oh, sure they can. I mean, all the veteran players know it. They can say it to us.
They're never going to say that.
They should definitely
I
say
mean,
it,
I think
though.
all games. I mean, I think, yeah, I think that's not even a BDO problem. Sadly, I think that's just like an industry problem as a whole, where it's like, it's like the same reason that Lost Ark was delayed, even though it's been out for half a decade, and because they just didn't want to compete with their own game of dropping New World in a similar time frame. So, I mean, I think that's just like a gaming industry or MMO difficulty as a whole, right?
True. Elyon got delayed, went free to play, and is now going probably pay to win or something like that. It's coming out, I guess, was it coming out at the end of the October or something like that? I don't know what they're doing for that game. What do we have to talk about?
I'm reading a statement that Amazon just posted on Reddit. I don't know if they actually solved anything about the name reservation. They're saying, we understand a desire for players to lock in your character name. It's possible to do this by creating a character on any server. It is not necessary to enter the game. Just creating a character reserves the name. The character can be later deleted, and the name will be available to your account for a small, approximately a minute delay. So I guess you can make a character on EU and then delete them, and then make a character on NA a minute after you, or within a minute of deleting it.
So a Band-Aid
once
fix.
the NA servers come up. Yeah, I don't know why they don't just let you make characters on every server and just lock the login button. But I guess this is what they want people to do.
Well, it's better than having it locked for 90 days to your account.
That's really weird.
Very fucking weird.
So you still have to log on EU and create the character? You just can delete it and get it back after a minute?
Yeah, you have to log on to EU, create the character, go to bed, 9 hours later, wake up, play your server, go to the EU server, delete your character, remake it on your server, and then log in, and hope that you don't get stuck in queue in the process. Yeah. Cool.
Dude, that's so weird, man. I guess at least they said something and said something. I guess I don't. Dude, I guess it's at least they said something about it, but I don't. Dude, my brain, I can't even make words right now. I'm just.
Well, I can't think of 2 other game companies that are doing worse than that, so I'm not too worried.
Fuck it, dude. Look, I just give me my first 3 weeks of fun. Okay, past that, fuck it, do whatever. But I think that's about it, right? That's like all the topics we had.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's all I had.
So, Kurt, what do you got going on the next week? I think I probably know most people's answer to this question.
Yeah, I don't really have a crazy amount in a way. I'm gonna be goofing off some more with like the Archer and Sork reworks that they put on Global Labs, and kind of doing some more seasonal PvP before that dies off come next week. And then I'm gonna play some New World on the launch day if I can get in. I'm gonna try to like get everything that I need to do, like get ahead on my shit this weekend. And then either like, I don't know, feed the mats to boys so they can craft, or just like try to do some PvP, but it should be fun.
Are you no-lifing with us, or are you just going to play it as a side game?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to 100% no life, because like work and like having to go to clinical, but I know for at least a week I have like a lot of, like I'll have a lot of downtime. So in some capacity, I'll be playing a shit ton.
Nice. What about you, Potion? What are you doing next week?
So I'll be streaming on Saturday, Monday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Be streaming all 3 days. Probably going pretty hard on those days. And then after that, it's no-lifing. And I don't know how I want to balance my stream while I no-life New World, because, I mean, as far as stream goes, it's like I think I should just probably stream my regular times whenever I happen to be up during those times, and then just turn off the stream during my odd hours, because I'm going to be playing the game like 16 hours a day, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be entertaining to watch 16 hours a day. So I think that's probably what I'm going to try to do, is try to find a few hours every day to be super entertaining, and then pump out a lot of good YouTube videos in the meantime. And I think once the game settles down a couple weeks in, that's when I think I should probably kick it up a notch with streaming, because then all the big boys will be like, oh, I'm tired, I'm 200 everything, and there's no point in getting more gear. And
I
like,
definitely wouldn't try to be super rigid about it, right? Because like, especially if you're like, okay, I'm gonna stream from this time to this time on these days. I don't think that's really the best way to go about it, because I mean it's easy to like burn yourself out and you're like shit.
yeah.
So it's more just like, okay, well I'm gonna boot it up. I'll be able to shoot the shit, have some good chats with the boys, and then past that, just hop on Discord, right, with the Aftershock dudes.
Yep. I'm going to be going spear as my primary, and then my offhand will be great axe for PvP. For expeditions, my offhand will be a hatchet, because I need that cheat death when I take too much damage. And then probably for open world, I'm probably going to go bow, because I think bow has the most just raw DPS for open world, and that kind of help me kill those mobs at long range and stuff. Make it a little bit more convenient. That's sort of my build I'm planning on.
Nice. All right, Nico, tell us what you got going on this next week, and just tell us in general where people can find you.
I mean, for me, it's basically the same thing. I'm just gonna pretend I'm super interested in watching WODs for 3 days. And then, I'm gonna know live as well. But I'm probably gonna stream like, I don't know, 10, 12 hours, I guess. And after that, it's off stream, because it's the same for me. Like, after a certain hour point, like, I'm just boring as fuck. And so I don't wanna keep streaming. So you can find me obviously anywhere with Nico Tulo, or I think on Twitter it's Nico Tulo TV, but Nico Tulo is always the correct angle to approach me with, I guess. And outside of that, it's just gonna be New World for a while, and then after that, once that dies down, I guess I'm gonna go back to Lost Ark PvP, just so I can get better.
Nice. Yeah, I'm pretty much same thing. I will be probably working on videos or just getting real life in order for the next couple days. So I'll mostly be missing until Tuesday. But starting Tuesday, I'll be getting up at like 3:30 a.m. my time, getting ready to sit in queue. And then I'm just going to be going 16 hours a day, pretty much play, sleep, play, sleep.
Jesus.
I'll have food ready. I'm gonna max everything, every crafting skill, every weapon skill. I'm gonna be one of the first people to 60. I'm gonna solve the game. Gonna beat the game. I'm going to massacre everybody. Gonna be wearing diapers. No, I probably won't do that. But yeah. So this will be pretty much the hardest I've gone on a game probably since BDO launch. So we'll see if we've still got it.
I'm looking forward to seeing Moreland's final form.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna handle the stream. I don't know if I can leave it on 16 hours a day. I might like turn my webcam off at some point, and just be like do like sleepy mode or something. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But either way, I'll be streaming a shitload and playing a shitload. So that's the plan. With that pretty much wraps up episode 62 of Nerds and Words.
Thanks
thank
for having
you
me,
guys
guys.
for listening. Yeah, Nico, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you back
was
on at
fun.
some point when we've got more news to discuss. And then, yeah, you can find this podcast on Spotify. You can find it on some of our Twitch channels as a VOD. And then I always forget, Potion, are you putting it on YouTube and Spotify, or is it just Spotify?
I put on my YouTube and Spotify, yes.
Okay, cool. So you can find it in both of those places. All right. That's about it. We'll see you guys next week, Friday, 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern. Yeah, we should all be still down for a podcast during New World. So we'll see you guys then.